The street was silent. Above, the moon hung high in a cloudless sky, pale light spilling across the empty road. The glow should have felt calm. Instead, it revealed a scene soaked in blood. A young woman stood at the center of it all. She wore a tight, unfamiliar outfit, jet black wings spread lightly behind her back. Her face was beautiful, almost flawless, yet her eyes carried a cold indifference as she looked down at the man lying on the ground. Blood pooled beneath him. Hyodu Ise lay motionless, his chest pierced, life already fading. The woman's lips curved into a strange, satisfied smile. "So this is Hyodu Ise," she murmured. "They said he carried an artifact, a potential risk." She tilted her head unimpressed, but he was far too weak. Renair, the fallen angel who had accepted the mission, straightened her posture. Using her beauty, her lies, and her blade, she had completed her task perfectly. "Well, it doesn't matter," she said lightly. "The mission is complete." Her wings flexed. With one last glance at the body, Renair lifted herself into the air, preparing to leave the scene behind. Just as she turned away, a low, calm voice cut through the night. "Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Renair froze. Her wings stopped mid-flutter as she hovered in the air. Slowly, she turned her head. A man dressed entirely in black had stepped into the moonlight. He walked forward unhurriedly, hands relaxed, expression calm, too calm. Renair narrowed her eyes and examined him carefully. No magic power, no holy aura. No demonic presence, just an ordinary human. Her tension loosened and she laughed sharply. "Haha, I thought Kuoh's devils had noticed me," she said mockingly. "Turns out it's just some idiot trying to play the hero." In her eyes, the man was nothing more than a foolish bystander. Luo Hao glanced briefly at the dying East on the ground, then returned his gaze to Renair. A faint smile appeared on his face. "You're right," he said calmly. "I am just an ordinary human." He paused. "But that changes if I use this." As his words fell, a golden light flashed at his waist. In an instant, a strange belt formed around him, dark gold in color, engraved with unfamiliar patterns that pulsed with power. Renair's smile vanished. "An artifact?" she whispered. "No, I've never seen anything like that." Her eyes widened slightly. "Who are you?" For the first time, her composure cracked. Luo Hao remained completely calm. "Me," he replied lightly, "just a passing Cayman rider." He placed both hands on the device at his waist. Henshin. With a sharp mechanical sound, he pushed the controls outward. Blessing the moment, a massive glowing clock formed beneath his feet. The hand spun violently as molten energy flowed across its surface. The heat exploded outward. The shockwave smashed into Renair midair, sending her flying back. Her wings flared desperately as she struggled to stabilize herself. The heat was unbearable. It felt like the world itself was melting. Her expression finally turned to panic. "This power, this presence," she gasped. "What kind of divine weapon is this?" Fear gripped her heart. "Don't tell me," her voice trembled. "Is this a god-destroying tool?" She could think of no other explanation, but Renair didn't know her guess was completely wrong. Renair was still frozen in shock, and Luo Hao's transformation had only just begun. A deep, majestic voice echoed through the street, layered with an authority that felt ancient and absolute. "The strongest, the most evil, the most ferocious, the supreme king, the demon king." Golden energy surged. Two massive bands of radiant power spiraled around Luo Hao's body, locking into place piece by piece. Crimson markings flared like royal seals as heavy dark gold armor formed over him, exuding dominance with every fragment. When the light finally settled, the demon king of time had descended. Boom! The moment the transformation completed, a terrifying golden energy field erupted outward. The ground cracked. The air screamed. Renair didn't even have time to react. "What?" The shockwave slammed into her body, blasting her away like a broken doll. She tumbled across the street, rolling several times before crashing to a stop. Groaning, she forced herself up, wings trembling, posture ruined. Her eyes locked onto the figure standing calmly at the center of the destruction. Dark gold armor, heavy, majestic, absolute. Renair's pupils shrank violently. There was still no magic aura, no demonic fluctuation, no holy power, and yet the pressure pouring off him was suffocating. "For forbidden," she whispered in disbelief. "No, that's impossible. How can an ordinary human possess a divine weapon at this level?" And reach the realm of forbidden hands? Her mind refused to accept it, but her instincts screamed the truth. The existence before her was something she could never oppose. Meanwhile, Luo Hao made no move to attack. Instead, he calmly lowered his gaze, examining his transformed body. "So this is the form granted by the demon driver," he said lightly. "No wonder." Energy surged endlessly through his body, stable and overwhelming like an inexhaustible tide. Satisfied, he slowly raised his right hand and aimed it at Renair. The moment she saw that gesture, Renair's face drained of all color. Her pupils contracted sharply. Her breathing stopped. For the first time in her existence, death felt close enough to touch. Without hesitation, she flapped her wings violently, turning to flee with every ounce of strength she had. She had to escape, now, snap. The sound of fingers snapping echoed softly, and the world stopped. Time froze. Renair was locked midair, wings half spread, body tilted forward in a desperate attempt to escape. She could think, she could feel, but she could not move. A terrifying force bound her completely. Luo Hao looked at her suspended form and spoke calmly without urgency. "Don't be afraid. I'm not here to kill you today. I just came to say hello." He paused. "Go back and tell your leader this. A new devil has appeared, the demon king of time and space." Snap, time resumed. The instant flow returned. Renair didn't hesitate. She flapped her wings madly, tearing through the night sky at full speed, fleeing as if her life depended on it. Whether she had clearly heard his words, she didn't dare find out. Luo Hao watched her disappear without expression. Then he reached for the device at his waist. With a firm motion, he pushed the switch. The dark gold armor shattered into countless points of starlight, fading gently into the air. In seconds, Luo Hao stood once more as an ordinary human. Silence returned to the street. Then, ding, congratulations to the host for successfully signing in at famous scene number 1. Reward acquired, Cage Hand of the Red Dragon Emperor. Luo Hao smiled faintly, a good start.
Hey everyone, welcome to FanFic Canon. Thanks for hitting play. I'm thrilled to bring this fan-made story to life for you. If you enjoy the ride and want more narrated fanfics, smash, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you want audiobook of a novel of your choice, join my Patreon. Request any title that's freely available online, and I'll produce a full narration just for you. Now, let's dive into today's adventure.
Listen to the sound of the system in your head. At this time, Luo Hao, the corner of his mouth rose slightly immediately. As for the system, he was quite satisfied, and with this reward, it is more convenient for me to participate in the subsequent plots. However, with the exception of Kuoh Academy, other check-in locations are too hard to find. It was only after the plot started that I barely got the second sign-in reward. From Luo Hao's mouth, it can be easily heard. His system seems to be a little difficult to use. Before the plot has started, he seems to have no way to sign in some special dots and get sign-in rewards. Actually, now Luo Hao, he is a traveler from the Earth, for some force majeure reasons. He came to this devil High School DxD world. Fortunately, though, when he came to this world, he also immediately obtained a sign-in system. As long as you complete the sign-in on a specific ground, you can get the corresponding reward. And Luo Hao, the first reward he got in this world is the Fengmo Drive. And this reward also guarantees Luo Hao the basis for his sweep in this world. However, today's mission is already over. It was successfully added to the plot, and Brother Cheng's Cage Hand of the Red Dragon Emperor also came into my hands. While talking, Luo Hao, he also walked slowly towards the dark street. In this world, the system also specially gifted Luo Hao a large villa. It's a really nice system. Ding ding, ding ding, ding ding. The next day, the sound of the alarm clock in the early morning directly called Luo Hao out of his sleep. Luo Hao, who turned off the alarm clock, sat up slowly, although very reluctant. But for now, Kuoh Academy is something that should go to school. Put on your slippers and walk into the bathroom. After some simple grooming, Luo Hao, he was ready to enter the Kuoh Academy. Clap, a sound. Pushing open the sliding door of the classroom, Luo Hao walked into the classroom slowly. And from the moment he walked into the classroom, it also attracted the attention of many female students. Only, for these visions, Luo Hao at this time, he didn't care at all, just walked back to his chair and sat down directly. Now he is really looking forward to those fallen angels or other forces immediately invading the Kuoh Academy. If that's the case, I don't need to come here to go to school anymore. However, just when Luo Hao took his seat, a tall figure, she suddenly entered the classroom where Luo Hao was. The beautiful face and the gesture of looking down without seeing the high heels successfully made the girl attract the attention of all the men in the classroom. That looks like Himejima Akino senpai. F***K, it's true, it's as beautiful as the rumors say. But why did senpai come to our lower grade classroom? Could it be that she's here to find someone? Looking at Akino Himejima, who has a beautiful face, the male classmates in this classroom, they also immediately began to talk about it. However, Himejima Akino, she has become very accustomed to the eyes of those men. Therefore, at this time, she did not pay attention to the eyes and comments of the men in this classroom. Instead, it was at this time that she went straight to the man, Luo Hao. Tada, footsteps quickly. Himejima Akina, she had already come to that Luo Hao, and looking at the beautiful black-haired senior in front of her. At this time, Luo Hao's expression was still very calm, although he was successfully cut into the plot. But he didn't expect Kuoh's demons to come to his door so quickly, and before Luo Hao took the initiative to speak. The Haimjima Aquino who was standing in front of him, she immediately asked Luo Hao with a smile in front of her. "Student Luo Hao, can you please come to our occult research department for a while?" While talking, Haimjima Aquino also showed a tilted head to kill. Clap, a sound, Aquino Haimjima, she opened the door of the Mysticism Research Department. Then she turned around slowly and smiled at Luo Hao behind her. "Then please come in, Luo Hao. Our minister is already waiting for you inside." Hearing the voice of the senior in front of him, Luo Hao also nodded. Afterwards, he had already stepped forward with Haimjima Aquino and walked into the legendary Mysticism Research Department. Walking into this room, as Luo Hao expected. It is no different from those ordinary departments, it's just because the level of Kuoh Academy itself is relatively high. Therefore, the layout of these departments is also quite luxurious, with red carpets, sofas, and chairs. In the center of this room is a long desk. And a girl with red hair and a shocking beauty, she was also sitting behind the office chair. The girl's hands overlapped, propped up on the desk, holding her chin. At the same time serious, it also looks a little cute. As for the woman in front of her, Luo Hao, he is naturally very familiar and understanding. Riaz, the younger sister of Demon King Lucifer, a superior demon, red hair killer princess. The popular idol of Kuoh Academy, has a charm that ordinary girls can't match and a stunning beauty. Moreover, she is also the real female #1 in the work of Devil High School DxD. But think for a moment, Luo Hao at this time, he was already very clear about the girl in front of him. Why did she call herself into this mysticism research department? After arriving in front of that Riaz, the Haimjima Aquino who was originally standing with Luo Hao, she also continued to walk and walked to Riaz's side. "Minister, man, I brought you." Seeing Haimjima Aquino at this time, she whispered to that Riaz. And listening to Haimjima Aquino who was beside her, Riaz nodded slightly to show her understanding. Then Riaz. She immediately turned her head and focused her eyes on the Luo Hao in front of her. Similarly, she also showed a shallow smile at this time and said to the Luo Hao in front of her. "Then, student Luo Hao. You know, why did I specially call you here today?" Listening to Riaz's words, Luo Hao already had an answer in his heart. However, even so, at this time he still shrugged his shoulders, spread his hands and said helplessly, "I haven't thought about it at all." Luo Hao's acting is perfect. At this moment Riaz, she couldn't see that Luo Hao's attitude was just pretending. And after hearing Luo Hao's answer, Riaz, she also laughed immediately and also stretched out her right hand, gently covering her mouth. So it is. I adjusted my mood and expression slightly. At this time Riaz, she was the Luo Hao in front of the river again and said with a very serious expression. "Yesterday I received a call to the devil, and I originally wanted to perform my duty and go to fulfill the requester's wish. But when I got to my destination. But I saw Luo Hao, and I also saw you use an artifact that I have never heard of or seen before, possessing incomparably powerful power." Listening to the words of Riaz in front of her, Luo Hao, he also nodded. That night when he cleaned up that Renair, he had already sensed the aura of that Riaz. But at that time he didn't care at all. It should be said that at that time Luo Hao, he deliberately let Riaz spy on his own power. However, even so, Luo Hao, after listening to the words of that Riaz, his expression was still extremely calm, even a little indifferent. He replied to the Riaz in front of him, "So what? Does this have anything to do with you calling me to the Mysticism Research Department today?" Listen to Luo Hao's question. Riaz, she also nodded immediately and continued to show her shallow smile. "Of course there is, I hope." "Luo Hao, you can be my person." Following Riaz's voice just fell, Luo Hao, he also immediately showed a shallow smile, although he had already guessed it, that Riaz, she probably wanted to add herself to her family. But Luo Hao never thought that she would be so straightforward. It could even be said to be a little too confident. Looking at Luo Hao's slightly raised mouth, at this time Riaz, she also showed a shallow smile. "Looking at your smile, it seems. Did you agree to this?" Obviously, Riaz, she seems to have misunderstood Luo Hao's thoughts, and the Haimjima Aquino who was standing next to Riaz had the same smile on her face. At this moment she may also have the same idea as Riaz. And listening to the Riaz in front of her, listening to her incomparably confident words, Luo Hao, he just shook his head indifferently and denied what that Riaz said. Then he just shrugged his shoulders, spread his hands and said, "Speaking of which, you seem to be very confident in your own strength. After seeing my demon, I can still say such words." Luo Hao, he used a very subtle language to deny the words that Riaz said. "Really?" As he said, Luo Hao, who has Fengmo driver and Red Dragon Emperor's cage. Indeed, there is no need to become Ria's retinue. He is not the Hyaldu Is in the original book. He needs to become Ria's servant and reincarnate into a demon to strengthen his original quality. And along with Luo Hao's voice just fell. Immediately, Ria's expression immediately became a little solid at this time and the shallow smile immediately converged. Obviously, although she predicted that Luo Hao might reject her. However, she did not expect that the man in front of him would actually say such words. Although there was indeed some discomfort in her heart, Ria's could only suppress it at this time. Luo Hao, it seems that you are indeed very confident in your own strength. Indeed, after seeing your golden armor, your strength really shocked me, but I am also very confident in my own strength. As she spoke, Riaz stood up from the office chair and looked at Riaz, who stood up from the chair. Hajime Aquino, who was standing beside her, was also a little surprised. Is the minister going to take action? It's really rare. Obviously. At this time, Hajime Aquino, she did not expect that the minister would choose to take the initiative at this time. This is a completely unexpected development. Moreover, for the strength of their own ministers. Hajime Aquino, she also has absolute confidence. After all, the title of Red Hair Killing Jai is not for nothing. The magic power of destruction characteristics has extremely terrifying destructive power. Of course, Aquino Hajime, she doesn't think the minister will miss this time. And listen to the words of Hajime Aquino, who was beside him. At this time, Riaz also nodded slightly. Oh yes, after all, that man, I feel that if I miss it, I will regret it very much, whether it is his strength or character. From Riaz's words, it is not difficult to hear. At this moment, he seems to have an inexplicable attachment to Luo Hao, and listening to Riaz's words, Hajime Aquino, she continued to cover her mouth lightly. Alala is the minister in love. Apparently, Aquino Hajime was making fun of her minister. However, this time Riaz, she also did not choose to respond to Hajime Aquino's words. Instead, he walked straight to Luo Hao. She opened her mouth slightly. Then, Luo Hao, let's have a contest. If you lose, be mine. And if I lose, I can grant you any request. What do you think of such conditions? Riaz, who is quite confident in her own strength, she didn't think there was any problem with the conditions she put forward. And listen to Riaz's words. Luo Hao, he also continued to shrug his shoulders and responded to her very perfunctorily. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. I also got a new artifact on my side and just wanted to try it out. For the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor obtained by signing in yesterday, Luo Hao, he can't wait to use it. In a specially constructed space. Luo Hao, he raised his head slightly and looked around him. Look at that peculiar space. Oh tilde you demons, it's quite fun to play. Even this special space was built in this Kuoh Academy. From Luo Hao's words, it is not difficult to hear. He was also a little curious about this special space. And Riaz standing in front of Luo Hao. After listening to what Luo Hao said, she nodded immediately. Yeah, Kuoh Academy is my family's property. Naturally, something special needs to be built here. After all, it would be quite troublesome if ordinary people discovered the existence of our demons. At this moment, Riaz, just like Luo Hao, felt very calm. She believes that the fight, there is no possibility of losing at all. And those who stood outside that special battlefield were all Ria's demon family members. The cute loli with silver hair, she looked at Luo Hao on the battlefield. Look at his very ordinary look. Tasheng Kitten, she showed a slightly disdainful expression. Is this what the minister wants? I feel a little weak. Before seeing the true strength of that Luo Hao, everyone seemed to think that Luo Hao was just a very weak and ordinary human being. And accompanied by the Tasheng Kitten's voice just fell. The Hajime Aquino, who was standing beside her, she also looked at the minister Riaz above the battlefield and said, yeah, that's what I think too. That man doesn't have any magic power, and he doesn't have the power that other races should have. Although the minister said that his artifact contained unimaginable terrifying power, but no matter how powerful his divine weapon is, it is impossible to reverse this situation. Just like that Tasheng Kitten thought, Aquino Hajime, she thought. No matter how powerful Luo Hao's artifact is, there is still no way to bridge the gap between the race and the foundation. Well, since it's someone the minister likes, I think there will still be some bright spots. At this time, Kiba Yudo, who is a knight pawn, also expressed his own opinion. Although he, like the other two, is not very optimistic about the current man named Luo Hao. But he thought that if it was a man whom ministers admired, that must have his shining point. Go back to the battle between Riaz and Luo Hao. Seeing Riaz at this time, she slightly raised her right hand. Suddenly, the pair of huge pitch-black demon wings had already appeared behind her. The red electric light and magic power lingered on both sides of Ria's, and just by looking at it from a distance, you can already feel the powerful magic of Ria's. Then, Luo Hao, can we start our contest? But don't forget, the bet between the two of us is over. Ria's, she is still very persistent in wanting to get the man in front of her. And seeing the one in front of him, it was Ria's who had begun to release her own magical power of destruction. At this time, Luo Hao also showed a shallow smile. Finally, he can try the brand new artifact he just obtained. Well then of course we can start. After responding to Ria's words, immediately Luo Hao he raised his right hand, boosted gear Red Dragon Emperor's Cage hand. With an order, a red dragon-like hand armor immediately appeared on his right hand, and a huge green orb was embedded on the back of the hand. This is one of the 18 most powerful artifacts in this world, the God Destroyer tool, which contains a super powerful artifact that can be infinitely multiplied. And just at Luo Hao when he just showed the artifact in his hand. Everyone present showed a very surprised expression. That man, he actually owns a God Destruction tool. This is an artifact with absolute power that even gods can kill, and Ria's she was also very shocked by Luo Hao's brand new artifact. I originally thought that the divine weapon of his golden armor was already strong enough to exaggerate. However, he actually has a divine destruction tool as the second divine weapon. It's unbelievable. Everyone looked at the Red Dragon Emperor's Cage hand displayed by Luo Hao. Immediately. They all immediately showed a very shocked expression. That's right, it's Chalongdi's Cage hand, one of the legendary god-killing tools, which contains the terrifying power of one of the two heavenly dragons. Himejima Akino, she lightly covered her mouth with one hand, showing a rather shocked expression, and her pupils shrank a little bit. The power of that man is increasing at a doubling speed. As for the Tasheng kitten, she also clearly felt that Luo Hao's power was rapidly expanding. If it's this god-killing tool, I know it now. Why is the minister so optimistic about that man? And that Kiba Yudo, he also held his chin with one hand, showing an expression like that. And the other side, after displaying his own cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor. Luo Hao, he was not in a hurry to immediately attack the Rias in front of him. On the contrary, he also slightly raised his right hand and looked at the Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand in his hand. It feels good. As a conventional means of combat, it is also a very good choice. After all, Feng Mo's armor is a bit too strong for the combat power system of this world. Luo Hao, he said with a sigh. And in the same way, the Rias who stood on the opposite side of Luo Hao. After she saw Luo Hao summon the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor, she was not in a hurry to attack Luo Hao immediately. Instead, she asked Luo Hao in shock in front of her. So, it's the god-killing tool that really made you feel so confident. It seems that the dark golden armor set before is just an artifact that you usually use. Obviously. At this time, Rias, she didn't know that Luo Hao, how powerful is the king of the devil in his hands. And listened to the words of Rias in front of her. Luo Hao, he also raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and then he shook his head in response to the Rias in front of him. No, that's what you thought wrong. This thing is my conventional means of warfare, and that dark golden armor is my true. The most powerful strength. With Luo Hao's voice just fell, immediately, he also clenched his right fist, slightly posing as if he was about to attack. And after seeing Luo Hao pose like this, that Rias, she also immediately became vigilant. As for Luo Hao, who has the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor in front of her, she has to re-examine the strength of the man in front of her. And, listening to what he just said, does the dark golden armor he used before have more power than that of the Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand god-extinguishing tool? Simply unbelievable. While thinking so, Rias at this time. She also slowly raised her right hand and aimed at Luo Hao in front of her. The magic power with the characteristics of destruction condensed on Ria's fingertips and transformed into a red magic ball that kept flashing electric light. Then, be careful, Luo Hao. In this battle, I will not have any mercy. Following that, Ria's voice just fell. Immediately, boom, a loud noise. The flashing magic ball containing the power of destruction at the position of her fingertips was immediately blasted out. The magic ball rushed towards Luo Hao in front of him. The speed is unimaginable. However, it is such a magic ball with an exaggerated speed. In Luo Hao's eyes at this moment, it is just a crawling snail, extremely slow. Under the doubling enhancement ability of Cage Hand of the Red Dragon Emperor, this level of skill is for Luo Hao. There is absolutely no way to play any role at all. Boost, 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 suddenly. At this time, the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor on Luo Hao's right hand immediately and continuously made the sound of doubling. A faint red arrogance appeared on Luo Hao's body immediately. Bang, a sound. Riaz released the magic ball with powerful destructive power which he easily held in his hand, then apply a gentle force. The magic ball was completely annihilated in this world. If it's just this level, it's absolutely impossible to beat me. Looking at the proud attack of his own minister, it turned out to be that ordinary man, so easily resolved. At this time they also showed a very surprised expression once again. Originally they thought, that man had a god-killing tool, it was enough to shock them. However, it was completely unexpected. This man, he still has such a powerful power, is it? Were they all deceived by Luo Hao's human identity before? Although it is said that the power of the god-killing tool is strong enough to have the ability to kill gods, but anyway, such power is too exaggerated. Hajime Akino, she doubted her eyes. The head of Riaz, known in the demon world as the red-haired killer princess. Her proud attack was so easily transformed by that human man. What an incredible thing this is. Although it is a bit exaggerated, but that man's power is indeed very exaggerated. As for the Tasheng kitten, she still described what she had seen with a cold expression on her face. Although she was a little unbelievable, it was the truth. The man named Luo Hao. At this moment, he really has incredible power. And he did such a thing with a human body. And back to the battlefield between Riaz and Luo Hao, watching his own attack be diffused in such a simple way. At this moment, Riaz, she also felt extremely incredible. And then there's a very strong sense of frustration, the power that he is proud of in the eyes of the other party. Was it really so vulnerable? A drop of sweat dripped from Ria's fair face. Obviously. Facing the man with terrifying power in front of her, Riaz felt unprecedented pressure. I saw Riaz at this time. She immediately fluttered the wings behind her and floated into the air. It seems that your power is indeed beyond my imagination. If that's the case, I can only use my strongest magic power. Although Riaz said so, however, even he himself in his heart could not help but have some doubts. Can this trick of his own defeat the man in front of him? And listening to the words of Riaz, who was already floating in the air in front of her, at this time, Luo Hao still didn't feel any pressure. Only, the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Oh tilde, it's the final kill. Then let's play with you a little longer. By the way, let you know how huge the gap between the two of us is. The current Luo Hao, he is not in a hurry to immediately defeat the Riaz in front of him. At this moment, he wants to defeat Riaz with absolute power after he has easily resolved all of Riaz's means. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Riaz, who was floating in midair, also became a little nervous. She never thought that Luo Hao would be so confident in his own strength. On the other hand, on his own side, he has completely lost his previous self-confidence. If that's the case, then please be careful. After all, this trick, even myself has some way to completely control it. Boom! From that Riaz's side, incomparably bright red lightning and magic power were violently released. Riaz is still a high-level demon after all. For this world, her power is indeed powerful. Although, in front of Luo Hao, it was nothing. I saw that at this time, all the magic power of myself was condensed. Riaz, she pointed the fingertips of her slender right hand at the Luo Hao on the ground. Extinguish star, extinguish star. One command. A magical artillery bombardment with terrifying magic and destructive power blasted towards Luo Hao on the ground at this time. The power is so great that it seems that it can destroy everything. And watch such an attack. Luo Hao did not show any panic. Instead, he said with a nod, well, this kind of attack is a little bit like, boom, suddenly, the powerful magic torrent released by Riaz directly bombarded the position where Luo Hao was standing just now. The powerful roar and shock wave oscillated instantly at this time. The ground was immediately blasted out of a huge pothole. Fortunately, Riaz and the others also expected this kind of battle to happen early on. Therefore, their family also built a huge space in this Kuoh Academy in advance for them to fight. Otherwise, an attack with such a huge power might cause a huge disturbance in the city. On the other side, there were many of Riaz's family members who were standing in the distance watching the battle. At this time, they also stretched out their hands and blocked in front of them. In this way, it resisted the dust that was rolled up by the strong aftermath. Minister Riaz, it's too messy. Such a powerful trick was released here. Seeing Hajime Akino at this time, she couldn't help complaining. +1, the minister is too messy. And Tasheng Kitten, she also echoed Hajime Akino. This blow should be able to decide the winner. As for Kiba Yudo, he thought that the minister could win with this blow. Slowly, the torrent of magic power also began to slowly recede at this time. The smoke and dust in the sky began to gradually become thinner. At this time, they also slowly put down their hands. At this moment, they are also very concerned. Minister Riaz, is she really able to win this battle, after all? Minister, she has already released such a powerful trick, if there is no way to win even this way. That also means... As for Riaz, who was floating in the air, she also looked at the place on the ground covered by the smoke and at the huge pothole that she had bombarded. She also spoke slowly. This time, it should be able to win. The consumption of magic power is more serious than I thought. Riaz, who was floating in midair, seemed to be struggling to speak even at this time. Obviously, the one-shot kill just now, the flow of magic power really consumed most of her magic power. At this moment, even her breathing began to become a little messy. However, just when the smoke was all dissipated, what was shown in front of everyone was indeed a very shocking fact, that Luo Hao. He was actually at the core of that explosion, but he didn't take any damage. Standing in the huge pothole that was bombarded by the magic torrent, I saw Luo Hao at this time. He patted the dust on his body a little. The power of this move in terms of this world is indeed very powerful, but unfortunately the opponent is me. While talking, Luo Hao at this time, he also looked up at Riaz, who was floating in the air. He clenched his fist slightly. Looks like this fight is over, however I hope you don't forget the conditions you set, Riaz. And with Luo Hao's voice just fell, boost, 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 the continuous doubling sound effect sounded. The green orb on the cage hand of the red dragon emperor in his hand also kept shining with green light. A powerful red arrogance covered Luo Hao's body, that hot breath. It seems that just getting close, it will be burned to ashes as powerful. And looking at Luo Hao, Riaz, who was floating in the air, also stepped back unconsciously. She felt fear from Luo Hao's powerful power. She felt palpable fear. It's just that they haven't waited for her to respond. Luo Hao, he disappeared into the ground in an instant. Brush. In the next second, he appeared in front of that Riaz. You who delusionally compete with me are really naive. When Riaz, she slowly opened her eyes, she found herself falling to the ground. And her memory also stayed on the Luo Hao just now, the moment he flashed in front of her. Wait, fight, sudden. At this time, Riaz, she finally reacted and suddenly sat up from the ground. However, what followed was a very intense feeling of exhaustion. The magic power on his body was completely emptied, and just as Riaz, she just sat up. In her ear, a voice that was familiar to her but a little strange came to her. Oh, who being able to regain consciousness in such a short period of time? Sure enough, it's a high-level demon and the basic quality is really good. Listening to the voice behind him, Riaz at this time. She also turned her head abruptly. She looked at the Luo Hao standing behind her. The memory began to reappear little by little in her mind. During the battle just now, Luo Hao came to him in a flash. Have already lost to the man in front of me. Riaz, who had a very complicated expression and a very strong sense of frustration in her heart. She also slowly stood up from the ground. She patted the dust on her body and said to Luo Hao in front of her, looks like I did lose to you. The difference in power is indeed a bit disparity. There is no way the power gap is too great. This is simply a no-suspense battle. And just when Riaz just said those words, her followers also came to Riaz at this time. Only, these family members at this moment, they are also very shocked and unbelievable. Even if they had expected their ministers would lose the battle, however, they couldn't think of it. Their ministers in such a situation would be defeated by the opponent under such a huge gap. This made them feel very unacceptable. And looking at those dependents who rushed over and stood beside Riaz. At this time, Luo Hao, the corner of his mouth continued to rise slightly. Then he continued to speak. Then Riaz-senpai, you haven't forgotten the bet between the two of us. Obviously. After frustrating the spirit of that Riaz, Luo Hao would give up the power that originally belonged to him, the winner. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Riaz, she also showed a somewhat frightened expression which was extremely rare. Although it was said that the bet between the two was proposed by Riaz herself, but that kind of bet was made on the premise that she didn't think she would lose the battle at all. So when she heard Luo Hao say this, she also felt a little scared. Also, it wasn't just Riaz who felt scared at this time. Hajime Aquino, who was also standing behind Riaz, also immediately showed a very troublesome expression for the current situation. She thought it was very dangerous. After all, the strength of the other party is indeed not the same level as them. Moreover, Minister Riaz had indeed lost the battle. I saw Riaz at this time, her voice trembling in response to Luo Hao in front of her. Well, when of course I remember. From the tone of Ria's at this moment, it is not difficult to hear. Now she is also very scared. The man in front of him, what excessive demands would he make? And listen to that Ria's words. Luo Hao's expression did not change much. Seeing that he stretched out his right hand, he said to Ria's in front of him. Then from now on I am your king and you are my pawns, obey me. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Immediately, Ria's body was already flashing red and dark golden light. What? What's going on me? I've become the queen's pawn. How is this possible? Feel the change in yourself. At this time, Ria's made a shocked voice. She had no idea that the man in front of her could even break the rules of the game. Transform yourself from king to queen. And he has become the king in this ranking game, became the king of Ria's and her original followers. Hearing Ria's unbelievable words and the shocked expressions of the family behind her. Luo Hao at this time, he also shrugged his shoulders and said, "Don't forget, this is your own condition. I'm just exercising the winner's right." As the victor of the battle, Luo Hao naturally has the dominance over everything. However, even Luo Hao said so. At this time, Ria's and the others still had expressions of disbelief. But that's unbelievable. Moreover, in the same devil chess game, there are two queen chess pieces at the same time. This kind of thing is simply a foul. About what happened to him, at this time Ria's, she still couldn't believe it. Not only did he become the family of the man in front of him, the queen's chess piece, but also the family members of his original family, they also became Luo Hao's family members as they should have. But just doing it to this extent is not enough. Luo Hao, he is still in a game and there are two queen's chess pieces. This is a very foul thing. Listen to Ria's words. Luo Hao at this time, he just continued to shrug his shoulders and said, "Humph, is it so difficult to twist the rules in your eyes? This kind of thing, just have a hand." With Luo Hao's voice just fell. He also slightly raised his right hand, which condensed a dark golden energy. It was formulated by the major demon kings together, the absolute rules of the ranking game. It was turned around and rewritten so easily by him. Twist the rules. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Ria's, she also repeated what Luo Hao said just now with a shocked expression. At this moment, she is probably the real realization. What a terrifying man he has attracted. Even the rules of the ranking game jointly formulated by the major demon kings can be twisted and rewritten so easily. The family members standing behind Ria's, their expressions at this moment are also extremely complicated. After all, the original Ria's was their king. But now, the position of king turned into this man named Luo Hao, a human being. At this moment, Luo Hao didn't care much about what the guys in front of him were thinking. I saw him at this time and continued to speak. "I'm quite interested in your ranking game. Let's use this game for a while to become the demon king of this world. After all, it would be boring to conquer the world with my own absolute power. I prefer this kind of siege feel." As Luo Hao's voice just fell, the corner of his mouth rose slightly. After listening to Luo Hao's words, everyone was shocked again. I didn't expect this man in front of me. He still wanted to be the demon king. And at this time, Ria's, she also let out a long sigh of relief. Then she said to Luo Hao in front of her, "Since I lost to you, I have no regrets. From now on, I, Ria's, and the pawns that belong to me, now I am all under your command and become your family." Ria's, she made a declaration here. And the voice that accompanied Ria's just fell. Luo Hao, he also closed his eyes and nodded. "Well, let's go here first today. I still have some things to do here." And with Luo Hao's voice just fell. Brush. He had already disappeared in front of Ria's and her family. Only a few of them remained in place. With a complicated look on their faces, they didn't even know it, they became Luo Hao's dependents. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? On the other side, Luo Hao returned to his big house. He also immediately threw his coat, which was stained with dust from the battle, into the washing machine. Now, it's part of the story. Later, you can sign into more famous scenes and special grounds to get sign-in rewards. While speaking, Luo Hao also stretched out his right hand. He looked at the Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand in his right hand. This thing is really good if it is used as a regular combat power. After all, it is impossible to use the power of every demon every time. Underworld, in the mansion of the superior demon Phoenix. A golden man, he was sitting on a sofa with his legs crossed. Listen to the report of the demon maid next to him. Seeing him at this time, his expression immediately became extremely ferocious. "What? You said my fiancée, she turned out to be someone else's family?" For this one thing, Lisa Phoenix at this time. He felt extremely angry. His fiancée Ria's turned out to be someone else's family. This kind of thing really made that Lisa Phoenix feel extremely angry. But at this time he slowly calmed down. Well, forget it, anyway. In this world, there is no one who can resist my Phoenix family. If you have time in the future, just grab Ria's back. Accompanied by Lessa, Phoenix's voice just fell. He also scattered his right hand and let the demon maid standing beside him step back. And on the other side, ding ding, ding ding, the alarm sound successfully woke Luo Hao from his sleep. He slowly opened his eyes and lifted the quilt covering him, but just when he opened the quilt, is that familiar figure, Ria's, who has beautiful long red hair, also slowly opened her eyes and sat up. "Yeah, Tilda, good morning, Lord Luo Hao." Ria's, she sat beside Luo Hao and greeted him with Ria's special quirks. Luo Hao, he was indeed a little shocked. However, soon, he had already calmed down his mood. I saw him at this time and said slowly, "By the way, when did you come to my house and I didn't tell you to do this." Although Luo Hao didn't reject Ria's behavior, but if the other party suddenly moved into his house, really surprised myself, and listened to Luo Hao's answer. At this time, Ria's also tilted her head slightly, showing a somewhat puzzled expression. But, Sister Greffia at home, she taught me this. Is there something wrong? The education of the nobles made Ria's way of thinking a little different from that of ordinary people. And as she spoke, Ria's also changed into her school uniform and was about to go to school. And after hearing Ria's words, Luo Hao, he also just shook his head. There's nothing wrong with it, it's better to preach very well. As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Hao also put on his own slippers and walked into the bathroom to wash up and go back to the Kuoh Academy. Do not, it should be said. It's time to prepare the next chess piece. However, come back. If it continues like this, it is estimated that the system is attached to this house. I'm afraid it's still a little too small. On the road in the early morning, Ria's and Luo Hao walked together on the way back to Kuoh Academy. Ria's, on the other hand, was tasked with protecting her king and insisted on following Luo Hao's side, it seems. Now she seems to have completely accepted her new identity. That is, the family of Luo Hao's men, this new identity. But it's almost time. Luo Hao, he also turned around and said to the Ria's beside him, "Go back yourself first, I still have a few things to do here." And listening to Luo Hao's words, Ria's, she also showed a somewhat puzzled expression. However, when she looked at Luo Hao's eyes, she didn't say a word anymore. Seeing her at this time, she nodded slightly and responded to Luo Hao. "Yes, I see, Lord Luo Hao." She looked at Ria's, who gradually disappeared from her field of vision. Luo Hao, he also murmured, "It's almost time to start the second plot, a new chess piece. However, there should be a brand new signature scene." With Luo Hao's voice just fell, he turned around. What? A sound like a silver bell rang out. At this moment, Luo Hao seemed to have hit something. When Luo Hao reacted, on the concrete floor in front of him, a girl with blonde hair wearing a nun's uniform and a beautiful and vulgar face was already sitting down. Only. As for the identity of this girl, Luo Hao, he is naturally very familiar with it. Also, listen to the system prompts in your mind, don't even think about it. At this time, he was already clear. Who is this girl in front of her? Seeing Luo Hao, he stretched out his right hand towards the girl who was knocked to the ground by him. "Sorry, it's all right." His tone was very flat, as if nothing had happened. As for the girl, she immediately stretched out her right hand and handed it to Luo Hao. "No, I should have said sorry. While patronizing and looking at the map, I forgot to look at the people on the road." Holding the girl's slender right hand. With a little force, Luo Hao had already lifted her up from the ground. After pulling the girl from the ground, she felt the divine weapon in her body. Sure enough, it was the next piece Luo Hao needed, Asia's healing artifact. On the battlefield, but has a very huge role. "Well, I seem to be lost. Can you please help?" I saw Asia at this time, she said shyly to Luo Hao in front of her. Listen to Asia's words. At this time, Luo Hao, he just pointed to the church not far in front of him very calmly. "That one over there should be the church you're looking for, not far." With Luo Hao's voice just fell, Asia's face immediately turned red. "I didn't expect that the place I was looking for could be found just a little bit more seriously. Myself really careless." "Yeah, it's there, I'm really a lunatic." No, how do you know what I'm looking for is the church here?" As she spoke, Asia showed a somewhat surprised expression. However, when that Asia's voice just fell, Luo Hao, he also continued. "By the way, you went to that church to find the refuge of the fallen angels, right? You are an outlier nun." Without any disguise, Luo Hao at this time, he has already said all the words directly. For him to speak, there is no need to pretend to be ignorant. Straightforwardness is his way of doing things. And along with Luo Hao's voice just fell. At this time, Asia, she was also slightly surprised. Then the expression became complicated again. She never thought that the man in front of her could see through her identity just by looking at him. And the man in front of him seemed to know his own affairs very well. Asia, she lowered her head with a complex expression of disappointment. Yes, I was expelled from the church for some special reason. Now they can only seek the protection of the fallen angels. Listening to Asia's words, Luo Hao also nodded. However, those fallen angels are not good things. It is estimated that they are just coveting the magic in your hands. Straightforward and clear topic, this is Luo Hao's style of doing things, and at this time he did not think that Asia, she would accept her opinion so quickly. Luo Hao's voice just fell. Asia had already lowered her head, but at this time she lowered her head even more, obviously. What Luo Hao said, she herself is very clear. However, now she has no way to resist, after all. Just relying on the power of her little witch, trying to compete with the group of fallen angels is simply a fantasy. And on the other side, inside that dilapidated church, at this time the female fallen angel who was repelled last time, Renair, she also showed a somewhat impatient expression. By the way, when will that nun be able to get here? I can't wait to get her pair of artifacts. As long as I have those pair of artifacts, even the damn it guy who claimed to be the demon lord last time, I will have the power to fight. Obviously. For the last time Luo Hao appeared, it was Riane Lei at this time. She still holds grudges. However, even after what happened last time, but she still didn't realize that the gap between herself and the king of the devil was nothing. Although I also know that the fallen angels may have coveted the power of my artifact to give me shelter, however, now I have only this option. And if I don't do it, I guess those fallen angels. Speaking of Asia here, she did not continue to speak, but heard here. Basically everyone knows it. What is the meaning of Asia's words? And look at that Asia's expression. Luo Hao, he also continued. Then if that's the case, I'll give you a choice. Be my pawn, I will help you solve all your problems and give you real shelter. Of course, I'm not a good person either, and I need the healing power of your artifact. But don't compare the stinky fish and rotten shrimp of the group of fallen angels with me. Luo Hao, he offered his own unattractive offer. With Luo Hao's voice just fell, Asia's expression became even more complicated once again, actually. At this time, she didn't even know herself. In the end, it is better to accept the other party's conditions or not, because she knew very well that the man in front of her was indeed a very good person. Compared to accepting the protection of the fallen angels, Asia at this time, she hopes even more to be sheltered by the man in front of her. At least the current Asia, she thought so, but as soon as she thought of the great power possessed by those fallen angels, she felt it. Perhaps accepting the conditions of the man in front of him is just an extravagant wish. Looking at Asia's hesitant and complicated expression, Luo Hao, he also sighed. Then he continued. Don't worry, those fallen angels are not my opponents. At this point you don't have to worry at all, but you yourself if you accept the protection of the fallen angel. What the consequences will be, you should be very clear about it yourself. Luo Hao was also a little unhappy about the fact that his power was underestimated, but at this point he really has no other way. After all, his race is still just an ordinary human being. He who did not spill out his power and breath was regarded as an ordinary person without power, which was also understandable. However, he has absolute power. I don't really mind being underestimated by those bugs, after all. The king, why would he care about the thoughts of insects? So that, you mean really, can I really put my hope in you? Obviously, under Luo Hao's words, Asia's faith also began to shake. However, it's not so much a word of wavering. Rather, she was not very willing to accept the protection of those fallen angels. However, due to the pressure and powerful force of the other party, they were forced to accept such conditions. Listening to Asia's words, Luo Hao also nodded. Well, in that case, just come to a place with me. As soon as Luo Hao's voice fell, he had already put his right hand on the shoulder of that Asia. And feeling Luo Hao's right hand at this time Asia, she also felt an inexplicable peace of mind. His face turned a little red involuntarily, not worth the words why. She always felt that the man in front of her always had an inexplicable kindness. Then, brush. At this time, Luo Hao had already brought Asia to the department of the Mysticism Research Department. The people who were originally sitting in this Mysticism Research Department saw Luo Hao and Asia who suddenly appeared. They were also really taken aback. This is a nun, Lord Luo Hao, what is going on here? Seeing that Luo Hao brought the guy dressed as a nun, Riaz at this time also felt very puzzled, although she doesn't think Luo Hao will bring the enemy into their demon territory. But for such a nun to appear on this demon territory, at this time Riaz still felt very suspicious, and in the same way the other relatives, they are also waiting for Luo Hao's response. And looking at the doubtful expressions of these relatives in front of them, Luo Hao, he still just said calmly, "She is your future companion. Well, nothing more to say. Get ready, we're going to attack the fallen angels in that old church in this city. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Immediately, all the people present, including Ria's, all showed a very shocked expression at this time. We demons, if we take the initiative to attack the territory of those fallen angels, but it will be regarded as a warning of war. If this is the case, it is very likely that there will be a confrontation between the two camps. Ria's, she expressed her inner thoughts, and the group of dependents standing behind her, their expressions are equally complicated. After all, taking the initiative to attack the church or something, this kind of behavior is too outrageous. At least it needs a slightly more reasonable reason. But listening to Ria's words, Luo Hao at this time did not take it seriously. Even if the two camps are opposed to each other, it's nothing compared to their level of combat power. Luo Hao, he also expressed his inner thoughts without hesitation. Really, for him, not even the transcender of this world can become his opponent. Not to mention those fallen angels who are shrimp soldiers and crab generals. However, this kind of thinking is only from Luo Hao's point of view. Ria's and others who have not deeply realized Luo Hao's King of the Devil armor is powerful. At this time, they always felt that Luo Hao's idea was too crazy. And this child will be your new companion. The artifact she possesses is the Smile of the Virgin, which has a powerful and indiscriminate healing ability in a short period of time. For ranked games, she can be regarded as playing a strategic role, and she is the target of the fallen angels in this city now. With Luo Hao's voice just fell, he also slightly pushed the Asia next to him out. Yeah, Luo Hao sang. Asia, who was pushed out, also made a slightly panicked sound after all. In front of a group of strangers, feel the demonic aura emanating from them. At this time, Asia, she also unconsciously felt a little scared. After listening to Luo Hao's words in front of him. At this time, everyone in Ria's looked down at the girl named Asia at the same time. If it is really as Luo Hao said, the body of this child contains an artifact that can heal indiscriminately. That is indeed such a value, after all. On the battlefield, this powerful healing ability allows them to carry out more high-intensity operations without any worries. Luo Hao at this time, he also continued to speak to the relatives present. Also, this is an order. I didn't tell you I was discussing with you. Obviously, Luo Hao, he didn't intend to give these relatives a chance to rebel against their opinions. Sighed slightly, at this time Ria's, she also said, okay, since it's Lord Luo Hao's order. We can only obey. Although Ria said so, however, I am afraid that even this girl is just an ordinary girl. She will obey Luo Hao's orders, not just as a family member, more perhaps because of failures in previous battles. Let the current Ria's, she has a special emotion for Luo Hao. Alala, the minister really listens to the words of Lord Luo Hao tilde and listened to Ria's words. At this time, Himejima Aquino, she also immediately joked with her minister. And listening to Himejima Aquino's words, Ria's, she was also a very rare blushing slightly, however it was soon answered. At the same time, in the old abandoned church on the edge of the city. Listen to the report of the fallen angel beside you. That Lena Lei, her expression immediately became extremely ferocious. What? The prey I prepared was actually snatched by the guy from last time. Obviously, at this moment Renail, she also finally knew. Why did you wait so long? The child with a powerful healing artifact has never come to this dilapidated church. Turn out to be the one who defeated him last time. The guy who claimed to be the Demon King was the one who took his prey away. Inside the Mysticism Research Department of the Kuoh Academy, at this moment Ria's, they and others are also thinking about how to attack that dilapidated old church. After all, that is the other party's territory. If there is no preparation, the situation may be more dangerous. Seeing Ria's at this time, she raised her head slightly. She looked at the Luo Hao in front of her and said, that Lord Luo Hao. What do you think is the best way for us to attack? Following Ria's voice just fell. The other family members also looked up at the Luo Hao in front of them, and they were all waiting for Luo Hao's answer. And listened to Ria's words. At this time, Luo Hao still crossed his hands on his chest. His expression was extremely calm. You don't need any plan, just raid right in. Fallen angels of that level, if they need to use tactics to capture them, would be an insult to us. The Luo Hao who doesn't put those fallen angels into his eyes at all. At this moment, he has never taken those fallen angels seriously. Only. Now Luo Hao, he took the other side's Asia. Then it is natural to give the other party some representations. And listen to Luo Hao's answer. At this time, Ria's also sighed slightly. Yes. The power of the king of her family is simply too powerful. There is no need for any strategy to deal with a fallen angel of that level, but As their dependents, fighting is their mission. If the king were to take action, it would be their dereliction of duty. Seeing Riaz, she stood up from the chair. Since Lord Luo Hao said so, then let's go straight. Riaz, she declared, and the voice that accompanied her just fell. The other family members also stood up at this time. Alara, Minister Riaz, sure enough, he still obeys Lord Luo Hao's words. Akino Heimjima, she joked about Riaz. As for the Tasheng kitten, she continued to speak in his expressionless and indifferent tone. I also think that Luo Hao's plan is better, just go up and make a surprise attack. Looking at the declaration of everyone, Asia at this time, she also slightly tugged Luo Hao's shirt and said, that. Luo Hao sang, is there really no problem with this? Asia, who still doesn't know Luo Hao's true strength. At this time, she still has an inexplicable fear of the power of the fallen angel. At this moment in her heart, she was still a little uneasy. Again, listen to the words of Asia next to him. Luo Hao at this time, he did not look back at her. Only, Luo Hao, he still said in a low and serious voice. After you have seen our power, you will not say such words. If you're ready, let's go straight. Luo Hao, he said to the crowd in front of him, and listening to Lord Luo Hao's orders, all the family members. They naturally nodded, then, a red magic circle covered them all and immediately disappeared in place. Next moment, Luo Hao and the others had already arrived not far from the dilapidated church. Tusk, sure enough, the enchantment was set. There is no way to teleport directly to the inside of the church. At this time, Riaz felt a little unhappy. It seems that the opponent is indeed ready for defense. Hahaha tilde, sure enough, it's just like what Renale said. You group of demons actually took the initiative to deliver it to your door. I saw at this time on the trunk and branches of a big tree in front of everyone. A blonde girl in a Lolita costume, she appeared in front of everyone and shouted loudly, as if the other party had already fallen into her trap. At this time Luo Hao, he just closed his eyes slightly and said, Riaz. Yes, I see Lord Luo Hao, not a single extra sentence. At this time Riaz had already taken the initiative to stand up, stretched out his right hand. Boom, a loud bang. The red lightning destruction magic immediately bombarded the female fallen angel who was screaming just now. Powerful magic, immediately blooming. He didn't even wait for the arrogant fallen angel to make a painful voice just now. She was already like coke and immediately disappeared into the air. There was only one place left, the kind of black feathers that belonged only to fallen angels. As for Riaz, she also slowly retracted her right hand at this time. Although, when she was fighting Luo Hao, she seemed very weak. However, in this world of High School DxD, especially in this early stage environment, her power is still very powerful. Tilde as expected of Minister Riaz. With just one blow, the arrogant fallen angel just now was completely wiped out. And looked at the strength that Riaz showed. The Heimjima Akino standing behind, she also immediately showed a shallow smile. She praised Riaz's great strength and said, the usual Heimjima Akino, she didn't have so many opportunities to see Minister Riaz's action. Therefore, this time she also naturally made a voice of admiration. It's just the words of praise for his original family members. At this time, Riaz herself didn't care much. Riaz, she said to Luo Hao in front of her. Lord Luo Hao, is my strength still good? At this moment, Riaz seems to be more eager to get Luo Hao's recognition. And listening to Riaz's words, Luo Hao at this time, he also nodded lightly and didn't say anything more. Because he is very clear at such a time, just a nod was enough to express his meaning. And the reason why Riaz before was weak was only because the object of comparison was herself. Luo Hao himself is very clear about this point. Riaz's strength is indeed not weak. However, compared to those opponents in the later stage, it is still a bit underwhelming. But at least for now, Luo Hao, he acknowledged the strength of that Riaz. Look at Luo Hao's nodding action. Riaz, she also immediately showed a shallow smile. Obviously, at this moment her heart was filled with an inexplicable joy. Go ahead, Luo Hao. At this time he led his family members and gradually went to the inside of the old church. And that Asia who followed Luo Hao, she also had some lingering fears about the power that Riaz showed just now. Original. Asia, she thought that even Luo Hao and the others were powerful. However, in the face of those fallen angels, it is still unavoidable to fight a fierce battle. Only, in fact, it did not develop as that Asia she expected. It was just an understatement, and the arrogant fallen angel who was screaming just now was turned to ashes and disappeared from this world. Asia, who has not been exposed to too many powerful things. At this moment in her heart she was subjected to an extremely powerful shock and shock. Okay, so strong. Luo Hao sang, your strength is so strong. I saw Asia at this time, she was extremely shocked and said to the Luo Hao beside her, and listened to the words of Asia next to him. Luo Hao, he still did not look back. He just continued to use his low and cold tone to respond to Asia. Well, that's natural. As my dependent, it must be the strongest existence, including you too. With Luo Hao's voice just fell, Asia, she was also immediately surprised. Then, his face turned slightly red again. Yes, yes, I see. She whispered in response to Luo Hao's words. However, the slight ruddy on her face did not recede at this time. And also Ria's walking beside Luo Hao. After she saw Asia's appearance, I don't know why. Ria's, her expression immediately wrinkled. Obviously, she was very dissatisfied with the contact between Luo Hao and Asia. However, for now she is still only a servant. I didn't directly express the emotion in my heart. And on the other side, in the hidden basement of that old church, sensing the change in the situation outside and the death of one of the fallen angels. At this time, Renale also gritted her teeth, and her sharp teeth were revealed without reservation. Damn it. Those guys really attacked. Aren't you afraid of causing a battle between the two camps of demons and fallen angels? Obviously, for the departure of Luo Hao and others at this time, Lei Nale also felt very apprehensive. After all, she had seen the terrifying power of the King of the Devil, and listened to Renaer's words. The other two fallen angels were also standing in this basement. They also spoke immediately. But now it's the situation. Even if they don't attack, we will take the initiative to attack sooner or later. After all, that artifact cannot fall into the opponent's hands in vain. It is not difficult to hear from the words of this fallen angel. For Asia's mother's smile, an artifact with indiscriminate and powerful healing power, they are also extremely persistent and extremely coveted. And listening to the words of the female fallen angel, the male fallen angel on the other side, he also agreed immediately. Yeah, it is estimated that they also expected such a thing to happen. Therefore, they will take the initiative to attack such a choice. Think for a moment. He had already reacted, why the other party chose to take the initiative to attack the church where they were. After all, instead of waiting for them, these fallen angels take the initiative to come to snatch the artifact. It's better to attack directly, and listen to the words of the male fallen angel. Renael, her tightly knitted brows did not relax at this moment. I saw that at this time she still gritted her silver teeth and said, Indeed, if they take the initiative to attack, it will be more beneficial for us. After all, we are already in this church with all the traps laid out, but that guy who calls himself the Demon King, his power. Obviously, at this time Lena Lei was still very afraid of the terrifying power that Luo Hao possessed. If she has already obtained Asia's mother's smile artifact, she may still feel that she has the power to fight. However, this is the case now. To deal with you, I don't need to use the power of every demon. And while Renaer was still thinking, a familiar and unfamiliar voice that could make Renael feel extremely terrifying suddenly entered her ears. Seeing Renee Lei at this time, she raised her head sharply. What caught my eye was the man who had once plunged him into an incomparable abyss of fear. No, impossible. How could you get in here so quickly? What about the priest guarding outside? Immediately, Renaer and the other fallen angels around her. They also immediately entered a state of alert. At this moment, they have absolutely no way of thinking. The other party was able to come to this basement at such a fast speed. Father, a guy of that level. Is he an opponent? For Renaer's words. At this time, Luo Hao didn't care much either, and look at those hideous fallen angels. Asia, she also immediately and unconsciously hid behind Luo Hao. As for Ria's, she saw that Asia was so close to Luo Hao. Her expression was also displeased, but she didn't show it immediately. Tusk, that priest. It's really useless. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have to give him so many blades of light. And when I learned that the guards I set up did not play any role, that Lena Lei, her expression immediately became ashen. Only, in this basement, there are countless restrictions placed on her. Also still think that this battle. She still has one last chance. I saw Renaer at this time. She immediately raised her right hand sharply. You guys, what are you still doing here? Didn't you see that the enemy is already in front of you? Renaer, she commanded the cultists in this huge basement loudly. And listened to Renaer's order. Those fallen angels who were brainwashed or controlled early on, they also immediately took out the blade of light in their hands that shone with a faint blue light. These weapons for demons have the effect of highly poisonous and powerful damage. Even these believers are just ordinary people, but it is still able to cause huge damage to these demons. On the other side, looking at the believers who are running towards them in groups holding the blade of light, Luo Hao at this time, however, he still just folded his hands on his chest with a very calm attitude, and he did not put his opponent in his eyes at all. Sword player kitten. You two shoot. Luo Hao, he said very indifferently. Understood, Lord Luo Hao, understood. Follow the orders of Lord Luo Hao behind him. At this time, Kiba Yudo and Tasheng Kitten, the two of them also gave their responses quickly. Then he immediately stepped forward. He rushed into the cultists holding the Sword of Light and stood in the fight. Just relying on the strength of two people has already suppressed the offensive of the hundreds of people. Lord Luo Hao, don't you need me to appear? But after seeing the normal battle, he turned out to be Himejima Aquino, who had no chance of making a move. She also asked Lord Luo Hao, who was beside her, pitifully. He listened to the words of Aquino Himejima next to him. Luo Hao, he just shook his head slowly and said, "It's not necessary to deal with an enemy of this level, what's more. On my side, I also want to try my new power." As he spoke, the corner of Luo Hao's mouth rose slightly. A brand new power, X2, with Luo Hao's voice just fell. Immediately, Aquino Himejima and Riaz, the two girls, also showed a surprised expression at the same time, especially that Riaz when she heard Luo Hao say to experiment with new powers. She was not just surprised but excited, after all. Like the strong, this may be her instinct as a girl, even Riaz, no matter how strong and rational she is, however, she was still a girl after all. An opponent of my level, you guys are really arrogant. Don't be complacent because you have beaten me only once, thinking that you are invincible in the world. An angry shout, at this time Renair and the two fallen angels beside her. The three of them simultaneously released the pair of jet black wings behind them, and at the same time there were two photon guns shining faintly in their hands. Immediately, they entered a state of battle. And look at such three fallen angels. Immediately. Riaz and Himejima Aquino, both of them were protecting Luo Hao at the same time, although Luo Hao did not instruct them to take action. But, in this case, no matter what happens or how special the situation is. As Luo Hao's family, they must protect their king and not let him get any dust. Even they themselves are very clear that their own strength is completely incomparable to that of Lord Luo Hao. And looking at Riaz and Himejima Aquino. At this time Luo Hao didn't say much. Only, he slowly raised his right hand. Boosted gear, Red Dragon Emperor's Cage hand, with an order, Luo Hao's right hand. A red gauntlet like a dragon appeared immediately, as Luo Hao's conventional combat weapon. There are still many opportunities for this god-killing tool to appear. However, the current Red Dragon Emperor's Cage is not the brand new power Luo Hao just mentioned. And look at the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor summoned by Luo Hao. Originally, those fallen angels had already entered a state of alert. But at this time he suddenly couldn't help but burst into laughter. Hahaha tilde, I just heard you talk about a brand new power so arrogantly. I didn't expect it to be just this garbage artifact. Elena Lei, she said loudly towards Luo Hao in front of her. It is still unknown what kind of existence Riane Lei is in the hands of Luo Hao's Red Dragon Emperor's Cage hand. She just regarded the artifact that appeared in Luo Hao's hands as the lowest level artifact that could only temporarily double its power. You want to compete with us even with your rotten street artifact. That's a bit over the top if you can't transform into that golden form before, or hurry up and return that little nun to us. While speaking Lena Lei, she also stretched out her right hand towards Luo Hao and the others in front of her, motioned for Luo Hao to return Asia to them. And listening to Rena Lei's words, looking at her grim posture. Asia, she even more unconsciously hid behind Luo Hao. As for Luo Hao here, he listened to the mockery of the group of fallen angels in front of him. He didn't care much, after all. There is no way for this group of weak guys to judge what kind of existence their artifact is. This is also something that can't be helped because they are just worms. Wang, how could it be possible to go back and care about their thoughts? But listening to Renair's sarcastic words, at this time Himejima Aquino was protecting Luo Hao and she couldn't help but lightly cover her mouth, made a slight smile. Sure enough, it's just the lowest fallen angel. Eyesight is really low and even the divine artifact can't be accurately judged. Obviously, at this moment Himejima Aquino, she was amused by the speeches of those fallen angels. As for Riaz on the other side, she also stretched out her right hand and placed it on her forehead. She shook her head and then said in a somewhat helpless tone, Lord Luo Hao's artifact is not an artifact of a bad street. No matter how ignorant you are, you should have heard of the legend of the God Slayer tool. As she said that Riaz, she raised her head slightly to look at the low-level fallen angels in front of her. Following Riaz's voice just fell. Once again, the expressions of those fallen angels also changed 360 degrees. God Exterminator, you mean the one in that man's hand is the God extinguishing tool? Impossible. According to legend, there are only 13 pieces of the God Slayer tool. How could it be in the hands of this guy? Obviously, at this moment Lena Lei, she seems to have no way to accept such a result. It's just that the other two fallen angels standing beside her. At this time they showed a very fearful expression. After all, if the artifact in that man's hand is really a god-killing tool, I'm afraid they don't have any strength to resist at all. However, at this time she also turned her head back. She turned to look at Luo Hao behind her and said, "However, Lord Luo Hao, the new power you just said, is it a new skill?" The original she thought Lord Luo Hao had a third artifact. However, if he took out the Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand again, I'm afraid that's not the case. On the other side, Himejima Aquino, she also asked curiously, "Hey tilde, I'm also a little curious. What exactly is the brand new artifact that Lord Luo Hao is talking about?" Hearing the words of Rias and Aquino Himejima, Luo Hao at this time he just said indifferently, "You'll find out later." While speaking, Luo Hao strode forward, walking towards the front. Then he said to the fallen angels in front of him, "That child is now my property, and you, since you dare to covet the treasure of the Demon King, then I will also let you experience the horror of the Demon King a little bit." As Luo Hao's voice just fell, he slowly raised his right arm, which was wearing the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor. "Come on, the blade is like fire." With Luo Hao's order, immediately, boom, from his right hand from the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor, an extremely violent flame immediately burned. Then a pitch-black takai slowly emerged from his right hand. Bang dang. Luo Hao immediately grabbed the jet-black sword and held it in his right hand, and looked at Luo Hao, who successfully summoned the flowing blade like fire. Rias and Himejima Aquino, who were standing behind him, both of them immediately showed even surprised expressions. The third artifact, Lord Luo Hao, how many shocking things are on him? The two girls sighed at the same time. They never imagined that the same man could have 3 artifacts, and they estimated that maybe this was not the limit of Lord Luo Hao. After all, he never said that this was his last artifact. As for Asia, who was standing in the back, she saw Luo Hao successfully summoning flowing blades of fire, although I haven't seen Luo Hao fighting in person, but in her heart she felt extremely relieved, because she knew very well that those fallen angels were definitely not Luo Hao's opponents. Then, what is that? First, the third artifact. After watching Luo Hao successfully summon flowing blade Ryu fire, it was not only Rias and others who were shocked. The powerful Renale, who first saw Luo Hao, when she saw Luo Hao calling out the third artifact, her expression was also shocked to the point of incomprehensible. That guy. What is it that can be so powerful? Renale, she gritted her teeth, showing a very ferocious expression. And back to Luo Hao's perspective. At this moment, he didn't care about the shock of the relatives and fallen angels around him at all. The cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor in his right hand holds the flowing blade Ryu in his hand. Such a configuration. Even if it is placed in the comprehensive world of various powerhouses, it may be a very luxurious configuration. Not to mention, in this world of High School of DxD. Looking down at the flowing blade like fire in his hand, Luo Hao said in a volume that only he could hear, "Why don't you try here and use the beginning solution too? Forget it if the blade is like fire, light is the beginning of the solution. I'm afraid the city is about to evaporate." After sighing the power of the flowing blade like fire in his hand, bang, a crisp voice. Luo Hao, he immediately raised the dagger in his hand and aimed it at the 3 fallen angels in front of him. Then he said in his somewhat low voice, "Then, if you're not going to run away, get ready for the world's most terrifying abyss." With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Boom! Immediately, on the top of the flowing blade like fire on his right hand, an extremely vigorous flame was already burning. The hot flame directly raised the temperature of the entire huge basement immediately. If it was an ordinary person facing such a scorching temperature, I am afraid they would be directly evaporated. Fortunately, Luo Hao's family members are all demons, and this kind of temperature is barely acceptable for them. Lord Luo Hao's third artifact. It turned out to be the power of flames. Yeah, but such a flame is too hot. Just the residual power released has already produced such a high temperature. Rias and Himejima Aquino, who were standing behind Luo Hao, said in surprise at the same time. For the third artifact held by Luo Hao, even the well-informed Rias, she said she did not know, but the power possessed by that artifact completely surpassed her understanding. As for Luo Hao at this moment, he slowly moved the flowing blade like fire in his hand. Boost, gone away, with Luo Hao's order. With his right hand, he gently swung a knife towards the 3 fallen angels in front of him. However, although for Luo Hao himself, he really just swung a knife in an understatement, but for other people, Luo Hao's understatement strike seems to contain the power of destroying the world. Boom, a loud bang. From Luo Hao's right hand, the position of the flowing blade like fire sword. Immediately, he was slashed out with a scorching sword energy that contained a powerful force of destruction and could burn everything in the world. The crescent-shaped sword energy dashed toward the three fallen angels in front of him at a speed that was completely unattainable to the naked eye. Haven't waited for the fallen angels to react. They were already burned directly by the powerful sword energy that contained terrifying power and scorching temperature. Not even any painful voices could be heard. It was already completely vaporized and disappeared from the world. It was as if any traces of existence had never been left behind. And that scorching sword energy did not stop because it defeated the three fallen angels. Only at this time, that sword energy directly blasted the huge basement and flew towards the distant night sky. And the entire huge basement was completely destroyed because of Luo Hao's sword energy. The place touched by Luo Hao's hot sword energy is still flowing lava like lava, lost the original ceiling. The moonlight is also unbridled, slowly falling down. And looked up at the huge hole that Luo Hao bombarded. At this time, Riaz and Hajime Aquino, the two of them were also full of surprise and lingering fears. Who would have thought of such a terrifying blow? It's just Luo Hao light cat's understatement. Even. What they don't know is that Luo Hao, he even deliberately suppressed part of his power. After all, the Zanpakuto, known as the River Blade Rumor, is known to have the most powerful destructive power. If it is not suppressed a little, it may cause irreversible huge damage to the surrounding environment. Even if it is said that the map needs to be redrawn, it is not an exaggeration at all. No, as expected of Lord Luo Hao, such a powerful attack is just a knife thrown at will. I saw Hajime Aquino at this time. Her slender right hand was still placed in front of her. She lightly covered her face, and her expression was still full of surprise. On the other side of Riaz, she was also full of excitement. If it's him. It can be. Even the elder brother is not necessarily the opponent of Lord Luo Hao. He must be the man who came to save me. Riaz, she spoke with a volume that only she could hear. On the other side, they looked at the three fallen angels who were destroyed and the huge void in the sky. Those fallen angels who were already completely brainwashed. They also immediately dropped their weapons and even ran away. Some are too late, and look at the broken believers. At this time, Kiba Yudo and Tasheng Kitten, the two of them also immediately relaxed. Looking at the fleeing believers, they all showed a shallow smile. And looking at the huge hole bombarded by himself, Luo Hao at this time. He couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, Ryurin Ryuhyu is not very convenient to use in the human world. It is quite suitable in places where there are many strong people in the underworld, but the magic drive seems to be inconvenient to use anywhere. For this world, the power of magic is still too strong. As for Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand, it is indeed very convenient and versatile. As Luo Hao's voice fell, he gently shook his right hand. Flowing Blade Ryuhyu immediately disappeared in his right hand, and Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand also slowly turned into countless red luminous particles and also disappeared in Luo Hao's right hand. And at the same time, in the underworld among the Phoenix family, the man named Lysa Phoenix, he was also shaking the red wine glass in his hand, listening to the report of the maid demon beside him. He nodded and said, "Oh, it turned out to be a man named Luo Hao." Snort. It seems, when I have time, I have to teach him a lesson, and he dares to touch my things at will. Inside the Mysticism Research Department of the Kuoh Academy. At this moment, Asia, her body is shining with a faint green and black light. And standing in front of her were Riaz, Luo Hao, and others. Seeing Riaz at this time, she raised her right hand and wiped her forehead slightly. In this case, Asia should have also successfully reincarnated into a demon, just like what Luo Hao and Asia agreed to before. At this moment, Asia, she has also successfully become Luo Hao's property, become one of his chess pieces. And listened to Riaz's words. Hajime Aquino, she also smiled lightly. Oh, that's the case. Our faction has been filled with another member. But our soldiers' pawns with 8 remaining pieces have not been used yet. Hajime Aquino, she seems to have discovered a very important key point. That is the soldier pawn, and none of it has been used yet. However, this also grows after all. In the original book, the 8 soldier pieces should have all been used by that Hyaodu Issa ship. But in this world, because of the lack of such a character, the 8 soldier pieces were naturally preserved. And listening to Hajime Aquino's words, at this time Luo Hao also nodded slightly. Indeed, just like what that Hajime Aquino said, in the current ranking game, it is in Luo Hao's camp. There are also 8 soldier pieces that have not been used at all. Accompanying Hajime Aquino's voice just fell. She also turned around slowly at this time. She said to the Luo Hao in front of her, "That's right, Lord Luo Hao, we still have 8 soldier pawns that are not used. If Lord Luo Hao wants to challenge some rankings, it would be a waste if these 8 soldiers' pieces are not used." What Riaz said was indeed the truth. After all, 8 soldier pieces are not a minority. Listen to Riaz's words. Luo Hao he also nodded. Well yes, but at the moment there is no suitable candidate. After all, if the soldiers under my command are too weak, I will not allow it easily. At this moment, Luo Hao really wanted to use the remaining 8 soldier pieces. But he thought for a moment. In this world of High School of Demons DxD, especially the early environment, there is simply not a single suitable candidate. And a guy who is too weak has no value at all. My head hurts a bit, and when Luo Hao was still thinking. The Asia who was lying on the sofa, she also slowly opened her eyes and began to wake up. Slowly she sat up. My head, it hurts a little. Asia, while she was complaining, she unexpectedly stretched out the pair of demon wings behind her unconsciously at this time. Ah, and just when she just stretched out her wings, she was also frightened by her own pair of demon wings. And looking at Asia like this, except for Luo Hao, everyone couldn't help but poof a smile, perhaps. Except for this little girl, there will be no more demons who will be intimidated by the appearance of their own demon wings. And look at the people who laughed. At this time Asia, she also felt a little shy and took back the demon wings behind her. Really, even Asia, she felt that her actions just now were really too much. However, Asia, after she took back her demon wings, he also took small steps towards the Luo Hao in front of him. She said to Luo Hao with a blushing face, "Now Asia has also become Luo Haosang's family, so I can always follow Luo Haosang's side." Accompanied by Asia's voice, it just fell. Immediately, Riaz frowned slightly immediately. Riaz herself is very clear about her current mood, but at the same time, she also knows herself as a dependent. It may not be suitable for the king who asks for himself, and he only focuses his attention on himself. However, Luo Hao at this time, he was thinking, the next family member. Who should I look for? Ding ding, ding ding. The alarm clock in the early morning successfully called Luo Hao out of his sleep at this time. I saw him slowly opening his sleepy eyes. As usual, he lifted his quilt. Only, it's a little different from what he was before. At this time, Riaz and Asia had already changed into their school uniforms early, as if waiting for him to go to school together. Sighed slightly, Luo Hao at this time, he said with a sigh. I thought the house that the system came with is already big enough, but from now on, it's still a little bit worse. Obviously, because Riaz and Asia stayed in Luo Hao's house at the same time, because it is a cohabitation relationship. The originally expansive house seemed a little too small at this time. Lord Luo Hao, hurry up, otherwise we will be late for school. Seeing Riaz at this time, she shouted to Luo Hao in front of her, as if urging him to hurry up. On the other side, Asia, she also jumped to Luo Hao. She bent down, approached Luo Hao and said, "Yes, Luo Hao sang, hurry up." Asia, looking forward to the first day of campus life. Accompanied by Asia's voice, it just fell. She also showed a shallow smile towards Luo Hao, her face still blushing slightly. It seems that there must be something in her heart that makes people happy. And listen to the words of that Asia. Luo Hao at this time, he also nodded slightly and said, "Don't worry, it really doesn't work, just stop time." Judging from Luo Hao's tone, he seems to have done a lot of this kind of thing, perhaps. This is the power and calmness of the Demon King. Manipulate the power of time at will, making everything beneficial to him. And listen to Luo Hao's words. At this time, Asia, she was a little confused. She tilted her head slightly and said with some doubts, pause, time, obviously. As for Luo Hao's words, she didn't seem to understand much at this time, however, this is also normal. Words from a girl who has never been exposed to any big fights. Manipulating time is undoubtedly a fantasy. Only, this kind of Arabian Nights doesn't work at all when it comes to Luo Hao. And just when Asia just asked this topic, the Riaz who was standing behind was also jealous. Quickly, she had already stretched out her right hand, grabbed Asia's collar and pulled her back. "Asia, don't get so close to Lord Luo Hao tilde. Riaz, she spoke to Asia in a rare, kind tone. But listening to Riaz's words, at this time Asia, she is also extremely rare, he muttered in a very low voice. "What's the matter?" Just when the two women were still engaged in an invisible struggle. At this time, Luo Hao had already stepped into the washroom. Kuoh Academy in the Mysticism Research Department, people at this time, they are all talking about. In the next ranking game, who should be chosen as the relatives? After all, there are still 8 soldier pieces that are not used. However, everyone discussed it for a long time, but none of them discussed an answer that would satisfy Luo Hao. And at such a time, clap, a sound, sudden the door of the Mysticism Research Department was opened at this time. A girl with black shoulder-length black hair, eyes, and a beautiful face. She brought a group of people to this Mysticism Research Department. Moreover, this girl at this time, as soon as she walked into this Mysticism Research Department, she had already walked straight to Luo Hao's line of defense. She came to Luo Hao, raised her head slightly, her eyes filled with murderous intent. The girl spoke to Luo Hao in a very cold and serious tone. "It's you, let Riaz become your servant, a damn it human." Along with the girl with shoulder-length black hair and glasses in front of her, her voice just fell. Suddenly. In this Mysticism Research Department, the air immediately became extremely heavy. The atmosphere also became extremely solemn. Everyone's expressions are extremely complicated. They want to say something, but they don't know what to say. And this time, Luo Hao. He also looked down at the girl in front of him. As for the black-haired girl in front of him, Luo Hao, he also knew the identity of the other party very well. Like Riaz, they are children of a big family from the Underworld. Riaz's childhood sweetheart. And the reason why she is in this Kuoh Academy is precisely because of Riaz. High-level demons take Kana, and those who followed her should be her relatives. However, she looked at her full of resentment for herself. Luo Hao at this time. He didn't even have to think about it, he knew what was going on. Estimate. It was herself who made Riaz her vassal. The other party thought that he had used some despicable means to cause such a result. But what is the other party thinking? Luo Hao at this time, he doesn't care at all, just like what he said before. Wang, how could it be possible to care what some insects think? I saw Luo Hao at this time. He glanced at Zhai Quekeng Na in front of him for a moment, and then he had a look of indifference. He even said as if he was provoking the girl in front of him. "Oh, tilde, it's really what I did to make Riaz my slave. But what about that?" With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Suddenly, the atmosphere in this Mysticism Research Department has once again reached the commanding heights. Seeing Haimjima Aquino at this time, she also showed a somewhat shocked expression and said, "Sure enough." As expected of Lord Luo Hao, this sentence really has his way of doing things. Although they already have a certain degree of understanding of Luo Hao's behavior, Riaz and others, however, when something does happen, Riaz and others, they still feel very difficult. Only the king of their family does have that strength. I saw Riaz at this time. She also quietly walked to the side of Shidukena and said, "That Kurana, actually, it's not what you think. It is because of my own reasons that I became the servant of Lord Luo Hao." Obviously, at this time, Riaz was very reluctant to see Zhai Quang and Lord Luo Hao arguing, after all. On one side is his best friend, and on the other side is his king and likes. And listen to Riaz's words. Immediately, Zhai Quang she also showed a somewhat angry expression. "Riaz, are you still a high-level demon like this? You can say that, it seems. You have been brainwashed by this damn it man." Things didn't go as that Riaz expected. At this moment, Shidukena, she didn't listen to Riaz's words at all. And listen to the words of Shidukena. Riaz, she also unconsciously took a step back. At the same time, she also showed a rather embarrassed expression. Cope with this situation. At this time, Riaz was also a little helpless. After all, this kind of thing is really not easy to explain to Zhai Quekeng. And, even if she knew, it wouldn't necessarily change her current thinking. And leaving that Riaz aside. Zhai Quang she also continued to look at Luo Hao in front of her and shouted loudly. "Although I don't know how exactly did you make Riaz like this, but I will never let you go. How dare you be more like this than my best friend? You lowly human being." The original Zhiquangna, she didn't have much resentment towards human beings, but for this man named Luo Hao in front of him, that's another story. And listening to Zhai Quekengna's evaluation of Luo Hao, immediately. Riaz frowned slightly at this time. I saw that she was also talking to her best friend. "Kurana, although you are my best friend, however, if you say this to Lord Luo Hao, even if you were my best friend, I wouldn't just let it go." Following Riaz's voice just fell. Zhai Quang she also turned around immediately. She looked at Riaz in front of her in disbelief. She had no way of thinking that her former best friend would say such words to her. Only, immediately. Zhai Quekana, she once again turned her gaze back to Luo Hao. "I can't understand why my best friend has become such a Shido Kana." At this moment, she can only blame all the resentment and reasons on the man in front of her. It's because of this man. My dear friend Riaz became like this. And Himejima Aquino, who was standing on the other side, was seeing Shido Sona. I saw her eyes full of resentment. Suddenly, Himejima Aquino's expression also became complicated and serious, and her brows were tightly wrinkled together, unlike Ria's, for this bias towards the human aspect of the problem. Aquino Himejima is better than Ria's. Of course, she is also very clear at this time why at this moment Jai Kwekana she has such a huge hatred for Lord Luo Hao. And feel the invisible murderous aura and hatred in the eyes of the Jai Kwekang Na in front of him. Luo Hao at this time, he was still extremely calm, and even the corners of his mouth rose slightly. I saw Luo Hao, he raised his head slightly. He turned his attention to the group of student council members who were standing by the door. Judging from the current situation, these should be the family members of Jai Kwang Na. Interesting. I saw Luo Hao at this time, he stretched out his right hand to signal Riaz to step back. Riaz, back off. Listening to Lord Luo Hao's words, Riaz's expression was a little complicated. However, he still obeyed Lord Luo Hao's order and walked behind him. And Luo Hao, he also slowly raised his right hand. Pointing at the group of Shido Kana's family members in front of him, he said, "Those are your relatives, right? Interesting. How about we play a ranking game?" Although Luo Hao once said that he wants to use the ranking game method to dominate the world, because he likes the feeling of attacking cities more. However, so far he has not played a ranking game. And if the opponent is too weak, he has no desire to fight. And along with Luo Hao's voice just fell, Riaz and the others immediately showed a surprised expression, the group of Shido Kana's family members standing by the door. They also showed a surprised expression at this time. Obviously, the relatives of both camps, they were completely unexpected. Things turned out to be like this. And listen to Luo Hao's words. Jai Kwang Na, her expression was also slightly surprised. But soon, it has calmed down again. Even the corners of her mouth rose slightly. I saw that she held her eyes slightly, and then she said to Luo Hao in front of her with provocative words, "Humph. Originally, I was thinking about how to make you change Riaz back to her original state, but now it seems that you took the initiative to hand the solution to my hands. Obviously, for their own strength, for the strength of their relatives." At this moment, Jai Kwekana, she has unlimited self-confidence. But every enemy that fights against Luo Hao before they go to war, why don't they all have unlimited confidence in their own strength? With Jai Kwekang Na's voice just fell, she also turned around abruptly at this time. Afterwards, she spoke to Luo Hao with a back gesture. "The battle will be tomorrow night. At that time, I will let you know what is really powerful, you weak human being." As soon as the voice fell, at this time Jai Kwekang Na, she was already walking towards the direction of the door. And just when she was about to leave the Mysticism Research Department, she also turned her head slightly and glanced at Riaz. Then, he disappeared from everyone's sight. And watching the departure of Jai Kana, Luo Hao, the corner of his mouth still had that shallow, confident smile. Interesting. It seems that the world's first ranking game will not be too boring. After that, Jai Kwang Na left the Mysticism Research Department. Riaz and others, they have already started to discuss immediately how to design a strategy. Only then can he gain an absolute advantage in the ranking game with that Shido Kana. After all, although they all think that the power of Lord Luo Hao is absolutely overwhelming, however, in the ranking game, if you need to use their king to fight, instead it was an insult to their relatives. Minister Riaz, by the way. On Shido Sona's side, she seems to have been reincarnated as a new soldier. It is said that her soldier was so powerful that she used up 4 of her soldiers' pieces. The quality is very high, just used up half of the pieces. Seeing Himejima Aquino at this time, she said this to Riaz. Obviously, regarding the latest information about Shido Sona at this moment, Himejima Aquino, she also felt a kind of pressure. After all, in terms of numbers, they have no advantage at all, and the quality of the opponent's brand new soldier is also extremely high, plus there is no information about him at all. In this way, in terms of intelligence, they have already lost a head first. And when Himejima Aquino's voice just fell, Riaz, she also bit her finger unconsciously. Really, just like what Himejima Aquino said, as for the new members of the other party, they have no data at all. In addition, the opponent's lineup is relatively complete. Their own side does not have an advantage in terms of numbers. And looked at Riaz frowning. Kiba Yudo and Tasheng Kitten, who were standing beside them, also showed a somewhat complicated expression at the same time. Really. This ranking game seems to be not as simple as they thought. After all, even Minister Riaz finds it so difficult. However, just when everyone was at a loss, Luo Hao as king, he finally spoke up. "You guys don't forget Asia. For new members, we also have them here. And compared to an ordinary soldier, bishops with healing abilities are more strategic. Unlike Rias and others, at this moment Luo Hao is very confident in his lineup. Even if it is a disadvantage in terms of numbers, he still does not think that he will be in a disadvantageous situation. Adding, Asia's powerful healing ability gives the lineup a stronger, lasting ability. This is also very crucial. In listening to Luo Hao's words of praise, at this time she bowed her head a little shyly. Luo Hao sang, she whispered Luo Hao's name, and along with Luo Hao's voice just fell. Everyone, they finally reacted at this time, indeed it is. When they were discussing just now, it was indeed such an important figure that was ignored. If it was after Asia's strategically valuable healing ability, they're able to employ tactics that were completely impossible before. Now these relatives of Luo Hao. They finally realized why Lord Luo Hao he wanted to reincarnate these little girls into demons. And after the discussion about the battle was over, Luo Hao he had also returned to his room at this time. As for Asia and Rias, they were still in the bathroom. Humph, the first ranking game, it's really intriguing. Obviously, for tomorrow's ranking game, Luo Hao at this moment he is also looking forward to it. However, just when Luo Hao finished speaking, in this aspect of him, but suddenly an extremely terrifying powerful magic burst out. Bright red light instantly shone in Luo Hao's room. An unfamiliar and powerful breath is gradually approaching Luo Hao. And Luo Hao, who felt this breath, his expression was also slightly on the side, although he was still very calm, but at the same time he also knew. The person who is about to appear, I am afraid that in this devil High School DxD world, he can be regarded as a top-ranked powerhouse. Interesting, things are getting interesting. I saw a strong atmosphere in Luo Hao's room at this time. It is more and more dense and obvious. The red light became more and more shining. Slowly, a bright red magic circle slowly entered Luo Hao's field of vision. From inside the magic circle, a figure gradually appeared in Luo Hao's field of vision. That is a man. He has the same bright red hair as Rias, a sturdy body, and a majestic golden armor. The whole body is exuding that incomparably powerful breath all the time. The man's name is Sazex Gremory, Ria's brother, one of the current 4 demon lords of the Underworld, possesses terrifying power and destructive power. It is one of the few transcenders in this devil High School DxD world. And in the face of such a man with terrifying power, at this moment Luo Hao's expression is still very calm. Even if it wasn't for the conditions, he still wanted to be here directly, have a fight with the man in front of you. He wanted to see, with the cooperation of the powerful forces of Red Dragon Emperor's Cage Hand and Flowing Blade Luo Hao, he was able to fight to such an extent with the man in front of him. As for the every devil drive, that's fine. If that thing is used, the battle becomes too boring. However, what Luo Hao didn't expect was something. The man in front of him, he actually took the initiative to say hello to him first. Yo tilde Luo Hao sang, you are my sister, the king of Rias, right? Obviously, for the fact that Rias became Luo Hao's family Sazex Gremory, from the very beginning he had known from his own demon maid. However, because of his own position and the strict supervision of his wife, Sazex Gremory, he had never had time to take a look. The man who made his sister willingly become his dependents. What is holy? But when Sazex Gremory, he just came to this place. When Luo Hao appeared in front of him, he was very aware of it, how unfathomable the opponent's strength is. Although the current Sazex Gremory, he has no way to get rid of the man in front of him, feel any trace of magic or the breath of other races, but even so, at this moment he can still feel the aura of the other party. The kind of aura that belongs to the king. And on the other side, listening to the other party's words, Luo Hao, he also nodded slightly. It surprised him a bit. The man in front of him was not angry because of his sister. How terrifying is such a city? Luo Hao is very clear about this matter. The Sazex Gremory in front of him in his heart could not be completely indifferent, but he can completely restrain it without showing it. It seems that this man can become one of the transcendents of this world, nor is it a coincidence. Humph, if there is a chance, I really want to have a contest with you. Seeing Luo Hao at this time, he directly told the man in front of him what he was thinking, and along with Luo Hao's voice just fell. That Sazex Gremory, he also immediately showed a surprised expression. What he did not expect at all was that the other party did not answer his question but said that he wanted to compete with himself. What a confident and fun man. Ha 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 tilde it seems. Luo Hao sang, you are indeed a very interesting man with great power. Sazex Gremory, he couldn't help laughing and praised Luo Hao loudly. Then he slowly calmed down his expression and said to Luo Hao in front of him, It seems that if my sister handed it to you, it is a very good choice. As for our battle in the underworld, there is a chance. Then, bye-bye Luo Hao sang. If I stay here too long, I will be scolded too. As Sazek's Gremory's voice just fell, the red magic circle appeared again. Afterwards, he also slowly disappeared from Luo Hao's field of vision. And just after that, Sazek's Gremory disappeared, in Luo Hao's mind. But suddenly the familiar electronic mixed female voice of the system sounded. Ding! Congratulations to the host for signing in the designated character Sazek's Gremory. Reward, Artoria Saber character summoning card. Listen to the sound of the system in your head. Luo Hao, he also slowly showed a somewhat puzzled expression. It turns out that if you sign into a specific character, can you also get a sign-in reward? This surprised me a little bit. While talking Luo Hao, who knows the goods. He also looked at the Artoria character summoning card that he had just signed into the special character. Actually, Luo Hao was surprised and puzzled by not just signing in characters, even the reward he received for signing in shocked him. So can you even sign in to get the character's summon card? And it's a character from other works, which is really surprising. Is Archeria Saber interesting? Just when Luo Hao finished speaking, bang, a loud noise. Riaz, who had just come out of the bathroom and changed her clothes, she slammed open the door of the room, making a loud noise. I saw her at this time with an anxious look on her face and a red magic ball condensed in one hand, as if about to attack. After pushing the door open, Riaz, she immediately said loudly to Luo Hao, "Are you okay, Lord Luo Hao?" Obviously. Riaz at this time she also noticed a trace of the breath that her brother appeared just now. And Asia, she also followed behind Riaz, after she looked at Luo Hao without any problem. Immediately, she also let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, I am relieved. After all, just now I saw Minister Riaz's anxious expression. Asia, she also took it for granted that Riaz's brother was a very dangerous character. Lord Luo Hao will be in danger. However, now it seems that this is not the case. And listen to Riaz's words of concern. Luo Hao, he also nodded slightly. Then he said in that slightly smiling words, "Well, it's fine. However, your brother is also a very interesting man, really looking forward to a fight with him." Although in front of Luo Hao's Fengmo Drive, that Sazek's Gremory can't be called opponent at all, but even so. At this moment, Luo Hao still has a high opinion of the words of Sazek's Gremory. And listen to the words of Lord Luo Hao. Riaz, she finally let out a long sigh of relief at this time and dissipated the powerful magic power condensed in her hands. Sure enough, it was a speech in the style of Lord Luo Hao. But Big Brother is also true. Didn't he tell him not to come to the world of humans casually? I don't know how he escaped the sight of Sister Graphia. It's really strange. Soon, Riaz at this time, she also began to complain about her own brother. In this regard, Luo Hao just sighed softly. He glanced slightly at the dark gold ancient pendant clock hanging on the wall. Then, he just said slightly in a low voice, "Okay, it's getting late, rest early, there will be a fight tomorrow." And with Luo Hao's voice just fell, Riaz and Asia, they both showed a shallow smile at the same time. They responded to Luo Hao at the same time. "Well, I see, Lord Luo Hao, when the words fall, the lights go out." The next morning, Luo Hao, he got rid of Riaz and Asia early on. He came to an open place in the city. Looking at the open space for a while, Luo Hao nodded. There should be no problem with this place." After a little bit of confirmation that there are no problems, Luo Hao, he slowly raised his right hand. Summon, Artoria, accompanying his voice just fell. Immediately, in front of him a blue magic circle appeared. The light shone and powerful magic power filled the entire clearing. Slowly, a young girl wearing armor with golden hair tucked behind her head and a beautiful and vulgar appearance. She slowly entered Luo Hao's field of vision, when she also saw Luo Hao. Without any hesitation, she asked, "Are you my master?" Looking at the very familiar girl in front of him, the very familiar lines, even Luo Hao, the corner of his mouth rose slightly unconsciously. In the world of Luo Hao in the past, there was a very famous saying. 100,000 moon chefs, 1,000,000 king chefs. And this king deserves to be the girl in front of him, Night King Archeria. From the sentence just now, it can also be known, the girl who appeared in front of Luo Hao, how popular she is. But this is not the point. The key lies in the power of her sword. Sword of promised victory if full fire. In the early stage of Devil High School DxD, it also has extremely powerful lethality. Luo Hao, he nodded and responded to the words of the girl in front of him, and after getting Luo Hao's answer, Archeria, she also immediately showed a slightly relaxed expression. But soon, she was already showing a somewhat puzzled expression and said, "It seems that this time I have come to a rather special world. As a heroic spirit Artoria after she came to this world, it is also a matter of course to acquire knowledge of a part of this world. So, she will only say the words just now, this is a relatively special world. And listening to Archeria's words, Luo Hao he also changed from a slight smile to a wry smile. Indeed. Summoning Artoria to such a world is indeed a bit strange. By the way, Archeria, do you still have that noble phantasm in your hand? Obviously, what Luo Hao said here is naturally referring to the scabbard, an ideal land far away from the world that Artoria had lost during her lifetime, if there is such a treasure. Even in this late-stage world of High School of DxD, it is a quite powerful noble phantasm. After all, that ideal town far away from the world was directly separated from the original world and created a brand new space. Having it is equivalent to isolating almost most of the damage. And listening to the words of her current master, Artoria's expression darkened a little. She responded to the man in front of her. Sorry, master, about that noble phantasm. Now it's not in my hands. From Artoria's current tone, she can clearly feel it. At this moment, she seems to feel a little guilty. But listening to Archeria's answer, Luo Hao didn't feel lost because of this. After all, he is very clear that this method of summoning heroic spirits must also be flawed to a certain extent. Regarding this point, Luo Hao also predicted it early. So when he heard Archeria's answer on the face, he hasn't changed much either. At the same time, in the Mysticism Research Department of Kuoh Academy, Riaz, who was sitting on the office chair, seemed a little lost today. Why, Lord Luo Hao, haven't come to the Occult Research Department today? Where did he go? Obviously. She didn't see Luo Hao for almost the whole morning. At this time, Riaz felt very lonely. And go back to that wide open space, looking at the man in front of me, Archeria's expression was a little complicated and hesitant. That. Do you really want to fight me, master? Obviously, for her master's special request at this time, Archeria felt very embarrassed. After all, how could ordinary humans be able to fight against heroic spirits? And listening to Archeria's words, Luo Hao he just shook his head and said lightly, if you just treat me as an ordinary human being, you will be a saber who suffers a lot. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Immediately, his right arm was already burning with raging flames. Suddenly, it looks like the dragon armor on the side of the red dragon is already covered, and this dragon claw also holds a pitch-black sharp blade. Scarlet Dragon Emperor's Cage and Flowing Blades Ryu Huo. He looked at the dragon armor on the master's right hand and the jet-black sharp blade. Unnoticed, Saber she also immediately felt an extremely dangerous aura. Although his master seems to be just an ordinary human being, he has no extra magic power or any other aura. But Saber she can still feel the invisible aura and power from the master. Immediately, Saber she has already taken back the embarrassed expression just now. Instead, Saber she said with a rather serious and respectful expression. I'm sorry for what I said just now, master, it seems. You are also quite a strong fighter. Yeah. Bang, a voice. As she spoke, Saber she held the Excalibur in her hand and made a fighting stance. Then now I also have to show my respect to the master. From this moment on, Saber she also completely regards Luo Hao as a strong opponent worthy of respect. Even if the opponent is his own master, this is just an ordinary tentative battle. But Saber she has no plans to keep her hands. After all, she said Luo Hao was an opponent worthy of her respect. And listen to Saber's words, Luo Hao he just nodded. If you don't use all your strength, I'm in a bit of trouble on my side. After all, if you don't know your full strength, it will have a certain degree of influence on my later plans. With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Dragon Armor's right arm holds the flowing blade Ryu Fire in his hand, also posing a fighting stance. He wanted to test the strength of the legendary King Arthur Artoria. On the other side, in the student council room of Kuoh Academy, she took a small sip of the black tea in her hand, as if she didn't take the night's ranking game into her eyes at all. She slowly put down the cup in her hand and said confidently in her eyes, Humph. It's just a mere human trying to challenge the higher-level demons, it seems. The human race is still too rich in this kind of idiots after all. Listen to the words of Shidukana. The two demon family members standing beside her also slightly held up their glasses, expressing their agreement with Zhai Tukang's words. Go back to the battlefield between Luo Hao and Saber. Boom, a loud bang. Saber she was knocked back a few steps by Luo Hao's powerful attack. Relying on the exaggerated amplification effect brought by the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor. Every attack by Luo Hao was like a cannonball, and it was quite difficult for Saber to deal with it. And Saber she acts as a heroic spirit. His fighting qualities are also very good. After being slammed back by Luo Hao, she quickly readjusted her posture. She looked at Luo Hao in front of her, as well as the Red Dragon Emperor's cage hand and flowing blade Luo Hao in his hands. "Can't help it," Saber said with a sigh. "It seems that the power of the Master has indeed completely surpassed the scope of human beings, but this shouldn't be the full power of the Master, right? Although he is already completely in the disadvantaged, but Saber, she can still see it very clearly. At this moment, Luo Hao has not fully used all his power." After listening to Saber's words, Luo Hao nodded slightly after being silent for a while. Then, he slowly raised the flowing blade like fire in his hand above his head. "If that's the case, it's a word of my respect. Let's take a look at the power of this sharp blade." With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Boom. Immediately from the black sharp blade in his hand, the incomparably hot flames that could burn everything in the world immediately began to rise. Boost, 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 boost. In addition, the cage hand of the Red Dragon Emperor in his right hand also shone with a gleam of red and green interlaced. Just looking at it from a distance, it is already very obvious. What kind of terrifying destructive power does Luo Hao's skill that is about to be released? With Luo Hao's outburst of strong power and scorching temperature. Suddenly, in this open space, even the moisture in the air was instantly evaporated, just for a moment. Saber, she already felt extremely hot, and the dryness in the air made it uncomfortable for her to even breathe. What a powerful force, such a temperature, as if it can melt and burn everything in the world. The power possessed by one's own master. At this moment, Saber, she also felt extremely shocked. Then, Saber, she looked around the same way and confirmed that there were no buildings or residents nearby. She just nodded slightly. Bang, a voice. Saber, she also raised the Excalibur in her hand high above her head. In an instant, countless particles of golden light began to emerge and gathered on the holy sword in Saber's hand. The intensity of the magic power is almost becoming liquid. Just from here, it can already be seen. At this moment, Saber, the magic power she has condensed and released is so huge and terrifying. In order to compete with the Master, I can only release my strongest noble phantasm. Saber, at this moment, she is very clear. Facing the Master's powerful attack, she can barely compete with him only by liberating the Excalibur in her hands. Right. Even Saber, she just thought that liberating her real name might be able to compete with Luo Hao's power. Saber himself was completely unexpected, this man who summoned him. He actually has such exaggerated power. On the other side, it looked like a Saber who was ready to release the true name of the noble phantasm. At this time of Luo Hao, he just showed a shallow smile. Humph, interesting. Let's see if the sword is powerful or the real name of the sword of vowed victory is powerful. With Luo Hao's voice just fell, with a brush. He immediately waved the flowing blade Luo Hao in his hand, but although Luo Hao, he just waved the knife gently. Boom. From the position of the flowing blade like fire sword tip in his hand, he immediately swung a huge sword chi that was burning with extremely hot flames. This sword energy dashed towards the Saber in front of him incomparably fast. Wherever he passed, it seemed to be a pitch-black scene like hell. Anything that was approached by this sword energy would be carbonized. Even the ground that the sword energy passed through turned into lava flowing with extremely hot magma. And looking at this sword energy that contains endless destructive power and ultra-high temperature, without any hesitation, Excalibur, with an angry shout, Saber released the true name of the holy sword in his hand, then he immediately slashed forward with all his strength. Boom. A loud bang, the huge golden sword energy and the energy flowed, and at this time it was also violently bombarded towards the flaming sword energy. Boom. Once again, the two sword chi collided together, producing a roar that resounded through the sky, accompanied by the powerful shock wave and wind pressure. The surrounding ground seemed to be blasted with a huge pothole, and the nearby trees were blown off by the middle. Just the aftermath and side effects of the collision of the two sword chi had already caused such a huge change in the surrounding terrain. But even so, these two sword chi only lasted for a few seconds. Next moment, Saber, the torrent of energy she released, was immediately swallowed up by Luo Hao's sword energy. What? Seeing such a scene, Saber, she immediately showed an unbelievable expression. Although it was expected that such a situation would occur, it is too exaggerated to say it. Looking at his sword chi, he won a crushing victory. Luo Hao. He just waved his right hand immediately. The flaming sword energy that was originally rushing towards Saber also immediately dissipated into the air. Sure enough, the power of Luo Hao is still too domineering. Even the first solution has not been released, it has already produced this kind of power. Cough, drink, after completing a tentative battle. Saber, she placed the Sword of Oath of Victory in her hand on the ground. Use this to support your body. Obviously, the battle just now was just a battle to test the power. However, Saber had to use all her strength to barely keep up with Luo Hao's strength. Of course, her physical strength has also been significantly consumed. At this time, Luo Hao also waved his right hand lightly, suddenly. The Scarlet Dragon Emperor's cage hand and flowing blade Ruo fire, covering his right arm, immediately turned into red rays of light and dissipated in the air. Tusk, if the next time I sign in I can get the White Dragon Emperor's light wing as well, it will be quite good. While talking Luo Hao, he also walked in the direction of Saber. Slowly he came to Saber. It's not bad, Saber. In this world your power is already quite good, but there is room for growth. The meaning in Luo Hao's words is very obvious. Even if she has become a heroic spirit, Archeria still has a certain degree of room for growth. But such conditions are naturally based on the premise that the master is Luo Hao. Listening to Luo Hao's words, Saber, she immediately showed a somewhat surprised expression. Master, are you serious? I still have room to grow. Obviously, although it has become a heroic spirit, however, Saber, she still has a heart that desires to become stronger. And listening to Saber's words, Luo Hao continued to nod his head. Well, yes, but let's go somewhere first. With Luo Hao's voice just fell, immediately. He was already a Saber and disappeared together in this empty place. All that remains is this disfigured ruin that has been destroyed. At the same time, in the Mysticism Research Department of the Kuoh Academy. At this moment, Ria still had a dull expression on her face. After all day she has not seen the appearance of Luo Hao. Inevitably, I felt a little lost in my heart. As Ria's former family member and best friend Hajime Aquino, she saw Ria's expression after seeing this expression. Naturally, she immediately knew what she was thinking. Only, at this moment she didn't say it directly. Instead, she kept pursing her lips and smiling, lamenting that Minister Ria's also had such a day. And at such a time, clap, a sound, the door of the Mysticism Research Laboratory was suddenly opened at this time. Luo Hao, he walked into this room with the Saber, who was already dressed as a student in a sailor suit, and listened to the sound of the door opening. Ria's, she also turned her head quickly, and her eyes were set on the direction of the gate. And when she saw that the person who came in was Lord Luo Hao, she immediately showed a surprised expression. Only. The beautiful girl in a sailor suit and blonde hair standing beside Lord Luo Hao made Ria's feel very uncomfortable at this time. Even his eyes dimmed a little, and his brows were slightly wrinkled. Moreover, I saw that Luo Hao brought a girl back. Asia, who was standing on the other side, also showed a rather uncomfortable expression. Only, unlike Ria's Asia at this time, she hadn't yet felt what was going on with her heartache. As for Luo Hao, he didn't care much about what the relatives thought. I saw him at this time and immediately took Saber into this room. Then, he was the one who announced loudly to the crowd, "Everyone, this is your new teammate Archeria. You can call her Saber as you normally would." With Luo Hao's voice just fell. Suddenly, everyone in this Mysticism Research Department also showed a surprised expression at the same time, although they expected that Lord Luo Hao might find them a new member to come back. After all, there are also 8 soldier pieces that are not used. However, what they didn't expect was that Lord Luo Hao had found such a petite girl to be their new member. Look at the expressions of the people. No need to think about it, Luo Hao, he has already guessed what these guys are thinking about. I saw him at this time speaking loudly in the Mysticism Research Department. This girl named Saber is speaking now, stronger than any of you. If you only judge a person's strength from appearance, you are a little too naive. Listening to the words of the master beside her, Saber's expression did not change too much. For her, she just needs to obey the master's orders. On the other side, with Luo Hao's voice just fell. At this time, the other family members all showed a somewhat ashamed expression. Really, just like what Lord Luo Hao said just now, for this girl's words, they were indeed a little underestimated just now. After all, anyone would think so. For such a small and cute girl, there is not much magic in her body. And on the other side, listening to Luo Hao's words, Ria's, she also whispered a little. Saber, Saber swordsman. Just from the title Ria's, she has already judged the basic position of Archeria. Listening to Ria's guessing words, Luo Hao at this time, he also nodded slightly. Then he also stretched out his right hand towards Ria's in front of him and said, "Well, yeah. Saber is positioned as a powerful swordsman. Ria's, give me the soldiers' pieces." Of the 8 soldiers and knights, none of them have been used. Luo Hao felt that it would be too wasteful to not use them. And listening to Lord Luo Hao's order, Ria's also handed Luo Hao the soldier's chess piece without any hesitation. But when she handed it out, Riaz also said with a somewhat puzzled expression, "However, if it's a swordsman, it would be more appropriate to use cavalry pieces, Lord Luo Hao. At least I think so now." Hearing Ria's words, Kiba Yudo, whose job title is cavalry standing in the distance, also showed a slightly embarrassed smile. And listening to Ria's words, Luo Hao at this time, he also nodded. Indeed, as is normal, using cavalry pieces would be better, but Riaz, have you forgotten the abilities of the soldier pieces? As long as he can enter the enemy formation, he can switch his abilities at will. Obviously, Luo Hao's thoughts are a little different from Ria's. It should be said that in his heart, their positioning of Artoria was somewhat different. Listening to Lord Luo Hao's words, Ria's, she also suddenly realized at this time. Really, if you really want to say it, the soldier's chess piece has a greater strategic role. After all, you can switch positions at will. And just when Ria's sense just understood, Luo Hao, he had already walked to Saber with the pieces in his hand. He spoke to Saber in front of him. "So, now it's time to start using pawns to give you a brand new job, Saber. After experiencing this, your strength should be improved to a certain extent." After listening to her master's words, Saber, she nodded immediately. "Well then, please, master." As soon as she finished speaking, Saber closed her eyes. And Luo Hao in his hand, a total of 4 soldiers' chess pieces are also immediately integrated into S-Bear's body. O tilde tilde 4, S-Bear's power, it's okay. Slowly, an extremely dazzling white light began to shine from Saber's body. A powerful magic power immediately filled the entire room. Except for Luo Hao, all the people stretched out their hands at this time to block the extremely dazzling light. And, especially after they saw that Saber used up 4 of the soldiers' pieces, they all showed a surprised expression. It turned out to be eating 4 soldiers' chess pieces in one go. Indeed, just as Luo Hao said, Miss Saber is a very powerful warrior. Riaz, she said in surprise. Although she knew that since Lord Luo Hao said that Miss Saber is a powerful swordsman, then the other party must be very powerful. However, to be able to eat 4 soldier pieces in one go, Riaz was somewhat unexpected. Slowly, the light emanating from Artoria's body, it was finally at this time that it began to slowly recede. After completing the transformation, Saber, she also raised her hands and clenched her fists slightly. I feel that the power is indeed much stronger, and the magic in the body is also being generated far and fast. Obviously, regarding the changes in her body, even S-Bear herself was somewhat unexpected. How about it, Saber? The power is indeed much stronger, right? And it also has a real body, no longer just the body of a heroic spirit. Luo Hao, he also said to the Saber in front of him at this time. And listening to her master's words, Saber, she immediately nodded in response to Luo Hao. "Yes, I am very grateful for the help of the master, which has given me a new body and more powerful strength." From Saber's words and tone, you can clearly hear it. At this moment, she is indeed grateful to Luo Hao. And not just general gratitude. However, it looks like a Saber who has already completed the transformation. At this time, Riaz also showed a slightly puzzled expression. Although she could indeed feel the changes in Miss Saber, her power and magic power had become much stronger. Only, her race still seems to be defined by the human race, not the demon race. This is a very strange thing. After all, there is such a thing as a demon chess piece. It was originally created to allow other races to reincarnate as demons. That, Lord Luo Hao, why did Miss Saber's power really become stronger? However, she doesn't seem to have changed her race. Riaz, she asked carefully towards Luo Hao beside her. He listened to the question of Riaz next to him. Luo Hao, he just nodded and said, "It's nothing, it's just that I changed the internal rules of the chess piece so that Saber's race has not changed, but the power is actually applied to Saber. And, the power of the chess piece, activate the bloodline of the red dragon of Saber himself. Taking advantage of the incomparably exaggerated and completely unreasonable power of the devil, the very relaxed Luo Hao has already rewritten the original effect of those devil chess pieces. It invalidated its original demon reincarnation effect, but instead awakened Saber's original red dragon bloodline. The blood of the Qilong, no wonder the magic power in my body is generated much faster. It turns out, that's the reason." And listening to Luo Hao's words at this time, Saber, she finally reacted. The reason why he suddenly became stronger was not only the effect of those chess pieces just now. More importantly, the concept and bloodline of the red dragon that he originally had was awakened at this time. Let your already strong power become even stronger. However, when I heard Luo Hao say that Saber has the bloodline of red dragon, Riaz, she seems to have thought of something strange again. After all, The artifact possessed by Lord Luo Hao is the cage hand of Emperor Qilong. However, soon Ria shook her head violently, denying her previous thoughts, and Luo Hao he also officially announced at this time. Their first ranking game is about to begin. Luo Hao with his family members successfully entered the different space. In this space specially created for battle, they are about to start the first ranking game. For the first time I entered this special space created by devils. Saber at this time she also showed a slightly surprised expression and said, "Here, another dimension. Is it inherent barrier magic?" Even gaining some knowledge about the world of this High School DxD. However, at this time, Saber's thinking is still more inclined to the magical system, thinking of Xingyu, and this kind of thing. It is estimated that there is no way to modify it in a short time. And listening to Saber's words, Luo Hao also reminded Saber immediately. That's not the case, Saber, but this kind of thing, when you see more in the future, you won't feel strange. As Luo Hao's voice just fell, Saber nodded slightly. Yes, I see, Master. Regarding Luo Hao's attitude, Saber at this time she wants everyone to have more respect. And along with Luo Hao's footsteps they moved very quickly. Their opponents also gradually entered their field of vision. Only at this time, Zhai Kuekana she also led slowly and her family members appeared in front of Luo Hao and others. She went straight to Luo Hao, then raised her head slightly and said to the man who made her feel angry, "Humph, wait. In the next battle I will completely defeat you, then save Rias from your hands." At this moment, Zhai Kuekana, she still thinks that Luo Hao passed some special means to make Rias his dependent. As for Zhai Kuangna, she also took it for granted to save her best friend. As Zhai Kuekana's voice just fell, Luo Hao still didn't change his expression. For him, he is more concerned about it. In this ranking game, how long will he end the battle? As for Ria's words after she heard Shidu Sona's words, she also immediately wanted to show that she did not become a servant of Lord Luo Hao for any special reason. But when the words came to her lips, she was a little bit out of her mouth. After all, she is also very aware of the character of her best friend. Soon, the camps on both sides return to their strongholds at the same time. Because it is a private battle, there is no referee in this ranking game. Only. As long as the opponent is completely defeated, it is a victory. This is the most simple and direct way that they both acquiesce at the same time. Sitting in the base camp. Luo Hao at this time, he also commanded very calmly. Saber, Heimjima, Aquino, Asia, let's go together, the three of you, without any strategy, use the most direct force to break through their defense line from the front. Strategy? Luo Hao does admit that this thing works. However, in the face of these current opponents, Luo Hao, in his opinion, is not at the point where strategies need to be used at all. After all, an opponent of this level, just crushing from absolute power is enough. Aquino Heimjima's long-range firepower suppression, Saber's frontal combat and noble phantasm output, and Aishana's healing ability at the rear is almost the same as a foul. Just 3 people, Luo Hao already thought that was enough. And listened to Lord Luo Hao's orders. The 3 of them who received the order also nodded suddenly. Then, the 3 of them have already stepped forward together and rushed towards the battlefield. They absolutely trust the instructions of Lord Luo Hao, and the remaining 3, Rias, Tasheng Kitten, Kiba Yudo. They are standing behind Luo Hao, responsible for the rear battlefield and protection. And looking at the 3 who set off Luo Hao at this time, he also continued to raise the corners of his mouth slightly. I'm really looking forward to it. How far will this chess ranking game go? Above the base camp on the other side of the battlefield, through a special display screen at this time the Zhiquangna. She was also able to know Luo Hao very clearly. He just sent out 3 chess pieces to fight, and the remaining 3 were used for standby and defense. Humph, sure enough, it's just human. Do you only use such basic tactics? Regarding the opponent's tactics, at this time Zhai Kuangna felt quite frustrated and she didn't think about it at all. Only. What she didn't know was that the other party didn't pay attention to her at all, so they used this simplest and most direct tactic. Moreover, now I am not only superior in terms of strategy and absolute power, but also in terms of numbers. I also have a slight advantage. Wait, Rias, soon I will save you from the hands of that human man. As Zhai Kuangna's voice just fell, he also showed a shallow smile. Presumably she is also very confident in her own strength. Spoon, Zhenra Chunji, Yuliang Yisha, Zunba Handle, the 4 of you go together. Now that we have an advantage in numbers, we must take advantage of this advantage even more. Immediately, with Zhai Kuangna, she had already dispatched her 4 chess pieces at the same time. However, just when Zhai Kuangna issued the order, as the only man in the family, Shiru Jiajin, he couldn't help but speak. That president, there are only 3 people on our side. Shouldn't it be fair to send 3 people to deal with it? obviously. At this time, Shiru Jaijin seemed to be more concerned about the fairness of this battle. But listening to the words of that Jai Yuan Shiru, at this time Shidu Kana, she just shook her head and said, "The lion fights the rabbit with all his strength. This is not a game. It's a war. We want to use our advantages to the greatest extent possible, completely defeat that human man, obviously." Zhai Kuangna, she is not the kind of naive person who is fair in competition and friendship is paramount. For her, victory is the most important compliment. And listening to the president's order at this time, Jai Yuan Shiru, he also nodded. Indeed, for him, fairness may not be really important. For their relatives, dedicating victory to your king is what really matters. Immediately, Qi Genshiro, he also set off together with the other 3 female chess pieces to start the first round of the contest. On the other side, Luo Hao at this time, he is also very clear about the other party's actions. Only, it was just a disadvantage in numbers, but it didn't make Luo Hao feel any pressure. Humph. Do you want to use numbers to gain an advantage? It's a pity. They underestimated the abilities of Saber and Asia. Obviously, at this time Luo Hao is also full of confidence in the abilities of Saber and Asia. After all, the powerful frontal combat ability coupled with the release of Noble Phantasm makes Saber a comprehensive warrior with super high attack power. And Asia, she has foul-level healing ability. Even Luo Hao thinks. Just relying on the strength of the two of them is already enough to push each other's camp. Look at the 2 teams of relatives who are about to start fighting in that special screen. At this time, Luo Hao also spoke slowly. The battle is about to begin. I'm really looking forward to it. As for Riaz, who was standing behind Luo Hao, she also stared at the screen very nervously. Actually, now Riaz, she is not as confident as Luo Hao. Moreover, the opponent also occupied the numerical advantage. Judging from Riaz's own understanding, this should be a very difficult battle. And return to the battlefield of Saber and the others. Looking at the 4 people coming from the other side, Saber's brows were also slightly wrinkled. The strength of 4 chess pieces, it seems, in terms of numbers, we are at a disadvantage. As she said Saber, she also clenched the sword of victory promise in her hand. Then she shouted loudly to Haimjima, Aquino, and Asia who were behind her. Miss Junai, the support and suppression from the rear is up to you. Asia, I'm asking you for healing too. As soon as Saber's voice fell, she immediately stepped forward and flew towards the center of the battlefield, looking at the pretty little girl with blonde hair galloping in front of her. At this time, Jai Yuan Shiru, he was also somewhat unable to react. It's embarrassing, this guy is also called Shiru. 1. Are you going to launch a fierce attack as soon as you come up? Obviously, Shiru Shiro, who was on the battlefield for the first time, couldn't react to Saber's offensive and seemed to be panicking. Immediately. At this time, Jai Yuan Shiru, he also raised his right hand in a dance and shouted loudly. The vein of the black dragon, following his order, a black dragon-shaped gauntlet appeared on his right hand. Bang, a voice. The sword of promised victory in Saber's hand slashed heavily on the gauntlet of Sakyujin Shiru. Accompanied by the sound of metal crashing, suddenly, that Qi Yuan Shiru, he was already bombarded by Saber and fell to the ground. Even. The powerful force made his right arm still a little painful and numb at this time. Okay, what a strong swordsman. Hee, does the other party also have a swordsman? Also, a guy who uses an invisible sword, is that her artifact? As she said that, at this time of the patrol handle, she also waved the katana in her hand and launched an attack on Saber. Maybe it's because of the swordsman. At this time, she seems to be aroused by the desire to fight and the will to win. However, in the face of the opponent's offensive, at this time of Saber, she is still quite calm and easy to deal with. The sword of Oath of Victory in his hand did not even wave much, and he blocked all the opponent's attacks. Even at that moment, she caught a flaw in the other party. Knife attack, bang, boom, immediately. That patrol handle, she had already been knocked out by Saber. Looking at the 2 people who were knocked down in an instant, as the leader of this battle, Genra Chunji also gritted her teeth and showed a rather troublesome expression. She had absolutely no idea. This blonde little girl has such a powerful power. It was just a face-to-face and it was already repelling the 2 team members. Damn it, in just 1 round he knocked back 2 people so easily. The strength of this guy is several times stronger than expected. And looking at the 2 repelled Saber at this time, she was not in a hurry to continue the offensive. Instead, she clenched the weapon in her hand and continued to maintain a vigilant attitude. However, the strength of the other party made her relax a lot in this battle. It seems the other party is much weaker than he expected. And looking at Saber, who has the upper hand, Aquino, Haimjima, and Asia, who play support roles in the rear, The two of them also showed a surprised expression at the same time. Alas, I didn't expect it. Miss Saber's strength is so powerful. In this case, there is simply no chance for anyone to take action. Akino Himejima, she pretended to be very sorry, and above the base camp on Luo Hao's side. Looking at the saber occupying the absolute top, Luo Hao said with a somewhat boring expression, "Tusk, it's much weaker than I thought. If that's the case, there's no way I could get interested. Just dispatching saber almost crushed the audience." Obviously. The weakness of the opponent and the boredom of fighting made Luo Hao feel a little unhappy at this moment, and listening to Luo Hao's words, Ria's also unconsciously twitched the corner of her mouth. The other party is too weak, too boring. Perhaps only Lord Luo Hao is qualified to say such words. There is no way his own Lord Luo Hao is such a special and absolutely powerful person. However, look at the other side, the situation is not so good. Watching himself fall behind in the first round. At this time of Zhikwangna, she is not to mention how angry she is. I saw that at this time she bit her silver teeth and clucked her brows together. Damn it, that guy, he has such a powerful family. This time it turned out to be my miscalculation in intelligence. Seeing the situation, Ria stood beside Luo Hao. She also looked forward to Luo Hao's side and said, "That's great, Lord Luo Hao. With such a strong saber-san, as long as this battle continues like this, we will soon be able to win." At this moment, she is not just excited about the upcoming victory. More, she is looking forward to this power in the future to be able to bring herself out of suffering. And listen to the words of Ria's next to him. At this time, Luo Hao, he just nodded expressionlessly. Unlike Ria's, defeat such a weak opponent, at this time of Luo Hao, he couldn't be happy at all, it's so boring. Not even the slightest bit of competitive fun. Sure enough, if you want to seek a real battle, or do you want to go to the place where the strong people gather like the Underworld? While thinking Luo Hao at this time, he also slowly raised his right hand, since the game is so boring like this. Luo Hao at this moment, he thinks it would be better to let it end faster. He was willing to waste time on this boring and meaningless fight. Saber. Release your real name. This battle is too boring and the opponent is weak. Finish early, don't waste time. Luo Hao, he sent a message to Saber remotely. And Lia standing beside Luo Hao after she heard Luo Hao's order, immediately. Her brain also crashed on the spot. Is your opponent too weak? Combat is too boring, do not waste time. Unconsciously, the corner of Ria's mouth twitched slightly again. There is no way. The king of his own family is so powerful and so unreasonable. Often can say something that will make people feel extremely shocked. And looking at Ria's and Lord Luo Hao like this, the Tasheng kitten standing on the other side, Kiba Yudo, they also felt very speechless. However, it is different. Kiba Yudo, he showed a wry smile. As for the Tasheng kitten, she still had a cold expression on her face without any expression. Go back to the battlefield of Saber and others, quickly. Saber, she had already heard the order from Luo Hao, her master. After hearing the order, she was also slightly surprised. After all, the battle didn't start long. The master has already ordered the release of the noble phantasm's true name to end the battle. Only. After a little trial and battle just now, Saber, she really thinks so. There is no need to continue wasting time with these opponents in front of them. Seeing Saber at this time, she nodded slightly and said, "In that case, I know, master." Accompanied by Saber's voice just fell. Bang-ding, with a crisp sound, she had already raised the sword of oath of victory in her hand above her head. The dazzling golden magic power quickly condensed in her hands and lingered beside Saber. Let her at this moment seem to be more sacred. And saw such a Saber. Standing in the back, Himejima Akino, who was originally responsible for remote support and suppression, showed an extremely shocking expression. That's the Holy Sword. No, this power, this magic power, is far superior to the Holy Sword. Akino Himejima, she originally thought that Saber possessed an artifact such as the Invisible Sword, but when she found out the truth, it made her feel extremely surprised. Okay, that's amazing, Miss Saber. And looking at Saber in front of him, Asia at this time, she also showed a look of admiration, perhaps because they are all Nordic people, for Saber's words. Asia, she always has an inexplicable intimacy. It's just that when the angle of view switches to the side of Zhikwangna, when she saw that Saber showed the holy sword in her hand, at this time of Zhikwangna, she also stood up immediately. Damn it. What the hell is going on? That guy, why does she have a powerful holy sword that has never appeared before? That man, what the hell is going on with him? Looking at the holy sword that the blonde woman held high in her hand, and the powerful magic that suddenly gathered around the woman and lingered around the woman. Suddenly, as the team leader of this assault, Shinra Tsubaki also felt a lot of pressure. On the other side of the Qi Yuan Shiru, he also shook his head and stood up from the ground. He looked at the saber in front of him who held the holy sword high in his hand. He immediately opened his mouth with a very surprised and shocked expression. Well, what the hell is going on here? Vice President Shinra. At this moment, the family members of Zhai Kuokingna, they all felt the great power at the same time. The enemies who were supposed to be at a disadvantage in their eyes actually possessed such a powerful force at this time. How can this not make them feel a sense of humiliation and great pressure? At this time, Zhenra Chunji, she did not answer the words of Shiru who was beside her. However, she still clenched her silver teeth and frowned tightly. The expression is extremely complex and crisis. Damn it. That group of guys, how could it be possible to have such a powerful force? That man, he was obviously just an ordinary human being. However, why does he have such a powerful family? Zhenra Chunji couldn't believe what happened in front of her eyes. And feel the breath and powerful power emanating from Saber. At this time, Hajime Akino, she also showed a shallow smile and said, "It seems there is no chance for us to take action. Miss Saber's artifact is too powerful. Just watch it here, you can already clearly feel that almost absolutely powerful force." As he spoke, Hajime Akino, she had already crossed her hands on her chest, showing a posture of watching a play. Because she knew very well that there was absolutely no chance for her to take action in this battle. As for the Asia on the other side as a healing character, her own unit was not injured at all, and of course, she also had no chance to take action. And back to Luo Hao's side. Through a special screen at this time, Riaz also saw the golden holy sword with huge magical power in Saber's hand. That holy sword, what the hell is going on? Why with such a powerful power? Lord Luo Hao, what a powerful family you have found again. Riaz found out that after she became the servant of Lord Luo Hao, you can always find something that shocks you. However, this is the kind of thing that can impact my 3 views every time for Lord Luo Hao, but it's just the most common thing. Well, with this blow, the battle is almost over. It's a shame that I'm still looking forward to this fight so much. I'm really disappointed. The opponent, really too weak. At this moment, Luo Hao couldn't help but sigh. He lamented that the battle was too boring and too short, and there was no way for Luo Hao to get any interest at all, and go back to the battlefield of Saber and others. It was originally a very grand and huge battlefield, but under the release of Saber's noble phantasm, it seemed to have become a ruin. And those relatives sent by Zhai Kuokingna have all fallen into the ruins, and they can't get up again. Facing the release of Saber's noble phantasm, with their current strength, there is absolutely no way to resist. And Saber, after she completed the release of the noble phantasm and defeated all the opponents in front of her, she also slowly retracted her right hand. The generation of magic power is indeed a lot more. Now that the noble phantasm is released, it does not consume much magic power at all. Even, I feel like I can fire a noble phantasm in a row. Saber, she was also extremely shocked by the power and magic she possessed now. And on the other side, seeing that all his family members were defeated by the opponent's blow. At this time of Zhai Kuokingna, she couldn't sit still anymore. Damn it, I absolutely want Riaz back from that guy. Accompanied by the voice of Zhai Kuokingna just fell. She immediately stretched out her demon wings and flew into the air. If there is no way for her family to usher in victory for her, she only did it herself. And feel the magic that is rapidly approaching. At this time, Luo Hao also raised his eyebrows slightly. Interesting. Do you want to do it yourself? If that's the case, I'll try that thing just now. While talking, Luo Hao slowly took out the dial of the second order of the King of Time. Looking at the president of Zhai Kuokingna, who was flapping his wings and soaring into the air. The rest of the family members also showed a worried and a little surprised expression. Among them, there was a family member she couldn't help but said. Sure enough, President, she still couldn't help but take action herself. Hope that guy is okay. Listening to the words of this family member, the other family member also nodded her approval. A very important message can be learned from their words, that is. These retinues have absolute trust in their king, the power possessed by Zhikuangna. On the other side, on the previous battlefield. Looks like the battle is over. Next, we just need to go to the opponent's base camp to continue the strategy. Seeing Hajime Akino at this time, she said to the Saber in front of her. And listening to Hajime Akino's words, Saber also nodded. Her master has given her so many favors. Saber at this time, she also thinks that she must give the corresponding return. And the first one naturally is to talk about the fruits of this victory and dedicate it to his master. However, when the two were talking, who boom, a gust of wind suddenly swept over them. Then a black shadow quickly flew through the sky. Obviously, it was Jai Quaking Na. She was rushing to the place where Luo Hao was. And after being swept away by the strong wind, Saber at this time, she also slightly pulled her hair to her ear and then she spoke slowly. Just now, what the hell happened? That seems to have very powerful magic. Obviously. Saber, who doesn't know enough about this world, doesn't seem to have judged the shadow just now. In fact, she is the king of the other party, that Shido Sona. And Himejima Akino, she is different from Saber. When she saw the shadow quickly pass over them, she had already felt it very clearly, that it is the king of the opponent, their biggest enemy in this battle, Shido Kana. Tusk, that seems to be the other's king, Jai Quangna, that guy. She wants to do it herself, but this is normal. After all, her family members were completely defeated by Saber with just one blow. Akino Himejima, she frowned slightly. If the opponent's king made a move in person, then they probably wouldn't be able to personally contribute the fruits of victory to Lord Luo Hao. And listening to Himejima Akino's words, Saber at this time, she also immediately showed a somewhat nervous expression and said, "If that's the case, let's go back here. If you start now, you should be able to catch up." As she said that, Saber was also ready to take a step, but listen to Saber's words. Himejima Akino, she just shook her head and said, "It's too late, Lord Luo Hao, he will end the battle in an instant." And the perspective shifts to Luo Hao's side. Look at the demon floating in the sky. Luo Hao at this time, he also raised his brow slightly and said, "Sure enough, you plan to do it yourself, however it doesn't matter. Since it is the king of the opponent who will play in person, in order to show respect, I will show my hands too." While speaking, Luo Hao also slowly stood up from his chair, however he already had a space-time drive on his waist. "That Lord Luo Hao, you don't have to do anything, just let me go." And looked at the Luo Hao who was about to shoot. At this time Rias, she also persuaded Luo Hao immediately. As the dependents of Lord Luo Hao, it is their duty to fight these things. Only, Rias, who had just made a request, was quickly rejected. The reason is that Lord Luo Hao wants to try a new power. Henshin, with Luo Hao's order, he turned the spacetime drive around his waist 360 degrees. Writer time, Kamen Writer, Zio letter 2171. The sound sounded and the silver and black were mixed with a little golden majestic armor which immediately attached to his body. Now, Kamen Rider Shuang's second order appears. Accompanied by Luo Hao's transformation, he became the king of Kamen Rider and the second order. The powerful aura and coercion immediately swept the entire venue. Everyone present. They were all shocked to the point of incomparable by the power generated by Kamen Rider Shiki King's second rank in that moment. Just the coercion that spilled out already has this level of power. I can't imagine Lord Luo Hao at this moment. How powerful is his combat power? And looking at the adult Luo Hao who has completed his transformation. At this time Rias, although her expression was also shocked, but it was also mixed with a trace of doubt. This is the posture of Lord Luo Hao before. Wrong, when he met Lord Luo Hao for the first time, he was wearing a dark, golden, heavy, majestic armor. Could this be Lord Luo Hao's new artifact again? After thinking for a while at this time Rias, she was once again shocked by Lord Luo Hao. Unexpectedly, Lord Luo Hao, he actually possesses a fourth divine weapon. If it is as expected by Rias before, it is estimated that this is far from all the artifacts of Lord Luo Hao. What a terrifying truth this is. And looking at the Luo Hao in front of him who was already wearing armor, the Jai Quaking who was floating in the air also showed a somewhat fearful expression. Tisk, is this the forbidden state of the artifact? A mere human being has an artifact and can enter the state of forbidden hands. However, even so, it is still impossible to make up for the gap in absolute strength. Even when I saw Luo Hao use the armor of the second-order king of Kamen Rider. At this moment, Jai Quaking, she still didn't think she would lose to the man in front of her. And look at the Jiquangna in the sky. At this time, the king of Kamen Rider, the second order, he was not in a hurry to attack immediately. Instead, he slightly raised his right hand and said to Rias and the others behind him, "You guys, back off a little." Kamen Rider Tokyo Nishai didn't explain the reason for their retreat. However, even Kamen Rider Shuang's second order didn't say it himself. Rias and others, they themselves are very clear about the reason. Yes, Lord Luo Hao, following Rias' voice just fell. Immediately. The remaining three family members also began to slowly back away. I left that battlefield to Kamen Rider Tokyo Nishai and Shido Sona. And looked at Rias who was respectful to Luo Hao. At this time Jai Quangna, who was floating in the air, had an even more hideous expression. For his best friend, he has become what he is today. At this moment Jai Quangna, let alone how angry she is in her heart. Damn it. You lowly human, you turned my best friend into this. You wait, Riaz. Soon I will save you from this damn it guy. Shido Kana, she still thinks Luo Hao used some despicable tricks to make Riaz his vassal. It's just that Cayman rider Shuang, second tier, on the ground. He listened to the words of Jiku Kana, who was floating in the air. Slowly, he raised his right hand, hooked it slightly, and made a provocative action. Then he said in his hoarse and low voice, "Do you think it's more convenient to roar incompetently than to attack directly, or you just don't have the guts to fight me?" It is very obvious that the Cayman rider Shuang at this moment is second order. He is the one who is provoking the Shidu Kana in front of him. And along with Cayman rider Shuang, the second-order voice just fell. Immediately, from the body of Zhai Kuangna, an incomparably powerful magic power has already erupted. Even the surrounding temperature was lowered by her powerful magic. It makes people feel like entering an ice cellar, extremely cold. Man, soon, you will pay for your arrogance. The original Zhai Kuoking should be an extremely calm woman, however, when facing Luo Hao. She's always going to get furious, and this time it's the same. Looking at the arrogant appearance of the Cayman rider Shiki King on the ground, at this time she couldn't bear it any longer. The huge demon wings behind her also fluttered violently. Suddenly, the gust of wind swept in, and she immediately burst out with unparalleled speed and flew towards the Cayman rider Shuang's second rank in front of her. However, facing the Shidu Sona, who was running towards him at an exaggerated speed. At this time, the king of Cayman rider and the second order. He was only a very slight sideways, and it was very easy to avoid her surprise attack, no pressure at all, and that Jido Kana, after her first attack, failed. When she landed on the ground, she turned around immediately. She flapped her wings again and continued to launch the most violent offensive towards the Cayman rider Shuang's second rank in front of her at a fast speed. It's just that no matter that Shitori Sona attacked the Cayman rider Tokyo second rank in front of him, however, there was no way to hit him in the slightest. Such a situation, it's so weird. Okay, so strange. Why Sona's attack? Even once, he never hit Lord Luo Hao. And Lord Luo Hao, he was able to avoid Kang Na's attack every time by the easiest way. Looking at the fact that happened in front of her eyes, at this time, Riaz also continued to show an extremely surprised expression. And even Riaz is like this, and there is no need to say more about the other family members standing beside her. And that was still Sona Shidu, who kept attacking Cayman rider Toki King's second rank. She herself felt extremely angry and incredible. Why? His own attack, there is always no way to cause any damage to this guy, and even the attack is so difficult to hit. What the hell is going on? Why can't my attack hit this guy? Could it be that there is such a huge gap between me and this guy? Let my attack, there is absolutely no way to touch his slightest. At this moment, Zhai Kuangna, she couldn't help but begin to doubt. Is the gap between him and the guy in front of him really that big? There was no chance to even touch this guy. Finally, after a long period of continuous attacks, there was no way to hit Cayman rider Tokyo's second order. Zhai Kuangna, she also immediately retreated violently. She once again distanced herself from Cayman rider Tokyo Nikia in front of her. She wanted to reset herself and find out why. Why is there no way to hit the guy in front of him at all? And watching that reopened the violent withdrawal of Kang Na. At this time, the king of Cayman rider's second order, he also slowly raised his right hand. He said to Zhai Kuoking Na in front of him in a somewhat playful and somewhat sarcastic tone, "What's the matter? Why don't you continue to attack? If you continue to attack continuously, maybe, you will have a chance to touch me." Obviously. The words of Cayman rider Shuang's second rank are provocatively mocking Shidu Sona in front of him. And listening to the words of the Cayman rider Shuang's second rank in front of him. At this time of Zhai Kuangna, she also felt extremely angry. However, the more this is the case, the more she needs to calm down and analyze the current situation. Otherwise, if we continue the battle just now, there was absolutely no way she could save Riaz from this guy's hands. Although I don't know what method did you use to let my attack fail, however, I will never lose to this guy like you. As Zhai Kuoking said that, he showed a more serious expression. The blue magic continued to linger around her. The freezing and biting mist slowly rose. And listened to the declaration of Shidu Kana. Luo Hao under the armor, he also continued to show a shallow smile. "Sorry, if you just rely on your strength, there is no way to defeat me. The Demon King of Time, any of your action steps I have seen clearly in the future." Accompanied by the words of Cayman rider Shuang's second stage, the voice just fell. Immediately, the people on the field, they once again showed an extremely shocked expression. Time. The Demon Lord of Space, X3 for a noble from the underworld like Ria's, she naturally has a certain level of understanding of the Demon King. However, she had never heard anything about the title Demon King of Time. Lord Luo Hao, who are you? At this time, Ria's also became more curious. In front of this Lord Luo Hao, who is his true identity? It's just for Zhai Kuangna's words. The so-called Demon King of Time is just a self-proclaimed name of the other party. After all, also as a demon noble from the underworld, her own sister is one of the Demon Kings. She is naturally very clear about the words of the Demon King. However, she had never heard of a Demon King of Time. Therefore, for Zhai Kuangna, these are just the other party's self-proclaimed and have no value at all. What really makes Zhai Kuangna care about is the Cayman rider Shuang, the second order just now, said that in the future he will see his actions clearly. You guy, can you see what will happen in the future? Zhai Kuangna, she asked such a question while frowning slightly. And listening to the words of Shidu Sona in front of him, Cayman rider Shuang's second drank, he also responded to the other party with no care. Don't make it hard to say things like that, manipulating time. It just couldn't be easier. Cayman rider Shuang's second order, he once again did something that should have been very incredible. I mean, don't care at all. Sure enough, as expected of the words that came out of Lord Luo Hao's mouth. And Ria's, who was standing in the distance, was still thinking about the Demon King of Time. After hearing the words of Cayman rider Shiki King's second order, she also involuntarily twitched the corner of her mouth again. As for Yudo Kiba and Kitten Tasheng next to them, the two of them also showed a somewhat speechless expression. After all, always making these exaggerated things so simple, it has to make people think that Luo Hao is in Versailles. And after getting the response from that Cayman rider Takuang's second order, at this time of Zhai Kuangna, the corners of her mouth only rose slightly. Oh tilde, that's how it is, no wonder my attack just now couldn't hit you at all. But if the attack range is spread to the point where you have absolutely no way to avoid it, then there is no such problem. With Zhai Kuangna's voice just fell. Immediately. She already raised her right hand high, and the powerful blue magic power immediately gathered above her head. In an instant, an incomparably huge gigantic ice cone exuding a biting chill had already appeared on the top of Zhai Kuangna's head. Obviously, after learning about the ability of that Cayman rider Shuang's second tier. At this time, Shidu Sona, she planned to use a large-scale attack to make the ability of the enemy in front of her have no chance to use. And look at the huge ice cone hanging in the sky. At this time, the king of Cayman rider's second order, he still did not make any movements. Perhaps you have misunderstood something and avoided your attack, not because your attack will hurt me, but a bug like you is not qualified to touch me. Following the words of Cayman rider Shuang's second order, he also slowly raised his right hand. He motioned for that Zhai Kuangna to attack. Listening to the words of that Cayman rider Shuang's second drink, immediately, the anger in Zhai Kuangna's heart also burned again, although he was already trying his best to suppress the anger. However, the guy in front of her was really able to stimulate her anger too much. Arrogant guy, disappear in front of me. With the order of Zhai Kuangna. Boom. The huge ice cone immediately ripped through the air and slowly fell towards the Cayman rider Shuang's second order above the ground like a huge meteorite. It's just that it hasn't waited for the huge ice pick to really touch the Cayman rider Shuang's second order. Crack, crack, crack. Boom. Suddenly, the ice cone, which was as huge as a hill, turned into countless powders and annihilated in this world at this time. Okay, this farce is here too. Looking at the huge ice cone the size of a small mountain that was released by condensing all the magic power, it turned out to be in a short moment. It will be turned into powder by the other party in such a simple way. For Zhai Kuangna, who was floating in the air in a split second, her brain was about to be shocked. Number, not possible. No matter how powerful it is impossible to do this in such a way. At this moment, Zhai Kuangna, she simply couldn't believe the fact that happened in front of her eyes. As for Ria's on the ground, she looked at her former best friend with a shocked expression. Immediately, she also showed a somewhat pitiful expression. The original Ria's, she was also shocked by Luo Hao's power that was almost beyond the scope of her own understanding. And today, my best friend has the same experience as myself. But since she was the one who provoked Lord Luo Hao at this time, Ria's would not take the initiative to pity her. After all, she never listened to her warnings in her mind. I saw Zhai Kuangna at this time and she slowly fell back to the ground, on the lips but still kept talking. Impossible, impossible, absolutely impossible. Even at this time, Zhai Kuangna still couldn't believe what had just happened and she kept saying impossible words. Her pupils shrank suddenly and her expression was full of incredible shocked and panic. Ta, ta, ta. At the same time, came in Rider Tokyo's second order. He also slowly stepped forward and walked towards the side of Jai Quaking Na in front of him. The armor fell on the hard ground with a crisp sound. Slowly. He also came to the front of the Jai Quang Na. As the first enemy I defeated in the ranking game, you should be proud. As soon as Kamen Rider Shuang's second order's voice fell, he slowly raised his right hand. His fingertips were aimed at the Jido Kana in front of him. Fighting, Luo Hao's camp crushed everything with absolute power and ended the battle in a very short time. Underworld, the superior demon Phoenix family mansion. Oh tilde my fiancé defeated another superior demon and her dependents and still in a crushing manner. Interesting. It seems that the human man has some skills. However, that guy, sooner or later, I will completely defeat him. Riaz, it can only be something that belongs to me. As soon as Leza Phoenix's voice fell, he smashed the red wine glass in his hand. Countless fragments fell on the ground, and the red wine flowed on the ground like blood. And the same is on the other side of the underworld. After learning that Luo Hao's camp defeated Jai Quang Na and her family, Sazek's Gremory, one of the 4 demon kings, he also immediately raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Sure enough, that man's power, I really didn't see it wrong. It seems that the problem of my sister can be solved. While talking, Sazek's Gremory at this time, he also turned his head slightly and looked at the maid next to him with beautiful long silver hair, of vulgar appearance and mature beauty, Gurifia. Sazex, he said to Gurifia with a slight smile. Gurifia, help me to test the true strength of that guy. In terms of my identity, I'm afraid it's not a good shot. As for Grefia, who received the order, her expression remained the same. However, she nodded silently. Ding ding, ding ding. Early in the morning, the sound of the alarm clock was once again successfully calling Luo Hao out of his sleep. Turn off the alarm clock, lift the quilt, and a set of operations goes smoothly. Only. When he opened his sleepy eyes, Riaz and Asia, they had already changed into their school uniforms, twisted their buttons, and were waiting for Luo Hao. And Saber, she is also wearing a sailor suit. He sat respectfully on the other side, also waiting for Luo Hao to get up. And look at the 3 women in the room. At this moment, Luo Hao, he can't help but sigh again, the size of his house. Originally, the 3 of them were walking to school together. Now, because of the addition of Saber, it seems that they have become 4. Surrounded by beautiful girls with 4 characters, Luo Hao walked on the street. He is always able to attract the attention of passers-by around him. They were all talking about the beautiful appearances of Riaz, Asia, and Saber, and he is envious of Luo Hao, a man who can have 3 beautiful girls around him at the same time. By the way, yesterday's ranking game, Saber-san was really good. I didn't do anything yesterday. Asia, she said to Saber with admiration. After all, yesterday's battle was the first battle for Saber. However, for Asia, it was also the first battle. Only. Because of Saber's powerful power, the ability of a healing character like Asia is completely useless. Even now, Asia, she is still a little lost. And listening to Asia's words, there is also her pitiful appearance. At this time, Saber, she also immediately turned her face slightly. She said to Asia in front of her, "Sorry, Asia, I made that fight end too soon. Let you have no chance to shoot." As a Saber of the Order and Good Camp, when she faced Asia, she naturally felt a sense of self-blame, thinking that she had let Asia lose the chance to shoot. However, at this time Luo Hao, he said nonchalantly, "Asia, you made a mistake. You didn't have a chance to shoot. It's not because of Saber. However, the opponent is too weak and there is no chance to use your healing ability at all." That's right. Luo Hao at this moment, the words he said are the truth of all this. The fact that the opponent is too weak is the key reason why Asia did not have the opportunity to use her power this time. And listen to the words of Lord Luo Hao. Asia, she also slowly stretched out her index finger and pressed it against her chin. She showed a slightly thinking expression. Then she said with a smile, "Looks like it is." After all, Saber and the others were not hurt at all. Obviously, at this time Asia, she also accepted Luo Hao's way of thinking. However, at this time Riaz, she just showed a worried look. The expressions are just a little complicated. It's just, she herself is trying her best to cover up her state. Do your best so that no one else notices. Although it was still easily caught by Luo Hao. Go back to the Mysticism Research Department in the Kuoh Academy. At this time the crowd continued to talk and laugh, and Luo Hao, he was sitting on the sofa on the other side. He glanced slightly at Riaz with a complicated expression. Luo Hao, he finally spoke slowly. "Humph. It seems, are you still worried about the marriage contract?" Luo Hao's tone was very flat, as if this matter had nothing to do with him. And along with Luo Hao's voice just fell. Riaz, she also raised her head sharply, showing a somewhat surprised expression. She didn't expect that Lord Luo Hao she even knew such a thing. Only, Ria's recalled the indifferent tone of Lord Luo Hao just now. Inevitably, Ria's eyes dimmed again. Yes, it is. Ria's, she responded weakly to Luo Hao. Listening to Ria's words, Luo Hao's expression remained unchanged at this time. However, he opened his mouth to respond to Ria's. My things are not something that any cat or dog can covet. Obviously. The my stuff in Luo Hao's words naturally refers to Ria's, and listen to the words of Lord Luo Hao. Ria's, whose eyes had already dimmed, immediately became happy. After all, he was called my thing by Lord Luo Hao. However, it was not time for Ria's to speak. The powerful magic power swept in again. Inside this mysticism research department, there is a red magic circle. It was at this time that it suddenly appeared. And looking at the red magic circle that suddenly appeared and the powerful magic. Suddenly, in this mysticism research department, everyone except Luo Hao and Ria's immediately became vigilant. Tasheng Kitten clenched her fist, Haimjima Aquino's hand condensed magic power, Kiba Yudo also put his right hand on the hilt of the sword. For this strange and powerful magic, they all felt a very obvious sense of threat. As for Luo Hao's words, he is naturally very clear about who comes. Only, even if the strongest man in this world came, it would not be able to shake him one bit. Naturally, Luo Hao is also very calm. Not as vigilant as others. And like Luo Hao, Ria's is also very clear about who is coming. Her expression became a little more complicated because she knows. If the other party comes here, it is estimated that the family will come to urge him to complete the wedding as soon as possible. This is the current Ria's, the last thing she wants to see. Slowly, the magic circle began to slowly recede. A mature woman wearing a maid's outfit, with long silver hair tied behind her head and a very beautiful appearance appeared in front of everyone. Then, she turned around slowly and shifted her gaze to Ria's and Luo Hao. As for the other people in this mysticism research department, they were still very vigilant looking at this sudden arrival of a woman with powerful magical powers. However, Ria's at this time, she spoke suddenly. All of you lay down your weapons. This person is my brother's wife. And the voice that accompanied Ria's just fell. Immediately, everyone in this mysticism research department showed an extremely surprised expression at the same time. They didn't expect this woman with powerful magic power in front of them. She turned out to be Minister Ria's sister-in-law. What a shocking truth this is. Quickly, these people have already adjusted their weapons and fighting movements back immediately. Also, he showed a somewhat ashamed expression, after all. Things like that just now were all glorious. And Greffia, she also walked straight to Ria's at this time, then she slowly spoke to Ria's. Miss, the Phoenix family is already urging your wedding to speed up. Could you please think about family affairs? Obviously, this time Greffia, although the order she received was to observe the strength of the man named Luo Hao, however, she was more concerned about Ria's engagement. And listened to the words of Greffia. At this time Ria's, she just shook her head violently and said, Greffia, how many times have I said that? Who I want to marry is up to me to decide. Ria's tone was incomparably decisive and her expression and eyebrows were also full of firmness. And looking at Ria's like this, Greffia, she also showed a slightly complicated expression. Then, she took a long sigh. Greffia, she herself is very clear. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible to persuade Miss Ria's to return to the family. And the real reason why this happened. It should be the target of his mission this time, the man named Luo Hao. Greffia, she turned around slowly. She focused her eyes on the man in front of her. Then, she said slowly. You are the current king of Ria's, right? You used a special method to transform Miss Ria's into your vassal. I don't know why, but at this time, Greffia, she had a special but inexplicable feeling about the man in front of her. And listening to Greffia's question, Luo Hao just nodded lightly. He didn't say much and didn't want to communicate too much with the woman in front of him. But, Greffia, she directly stated the purpose of her trip this time. The task that Sazex gave me is to test your strength, Mr. Luo Hao. Accompanied by Greffia's voice, it just fell. Everyone in this mysticism research department sighed in unison. I don't know why. These recent people always want to challenge the power of Lord Luo Hao. But these relatives of Luo Hao, after seeing Luo Hao's strength several times in a row, now they are very clear about one thing, that is. Lord Luo Hao has absolute power and no challenger can successfully challenge his authority. And listening to the words of the silver-haired maid in front of her, Luo Hao, he also raised his eyebrows slightly. After that, he said indifferently to the Greffia in front of him, Humph, was that an order from that Sazex? If you want to challenge me, you better let him do it himself. With your strength alone, you don't have the qualifications to challenge me. Luo Hao's tone is full of unquestionable majesty and power. A powerful coercion immediately emanated from the invisible. And that Greffia, after she heard Luo Hao's words, she originally wanted to immediately reprimand this over-the-top human man in front of her. But before she could speak, she was already suppressed by the powerful coercion emanating from the other party and was speechless. In fact, all kinds of uncomfortable feelings flooded into Greffia's heart. Immediately, she also frowned and knelt down in front of Luo Hao on one knee. It was as if he was a subject surrendering in front of the Demon King. Facing Luo Hao's coercion at this moment, Greffia felt as if she was about to be defeated immediately. Why this man? He is obviously just an ordinary human being, but he can exude this level of aura and coercion. At this moment, Greffia thought in her heart. And looking at this Greffia. At this time, Himejima Aquino and other family members also looked at each other. Afterwards, they shrugged their shoulders together, showing a rather helpless expression. This is the first time they have tried to provoke the power and majesty of Lord Luo Hao. And what happened to them, Himejima Aquino and others at this moment, they have long been surprised. The superior demon who provoked Lord Luo Hao last time was Zhai Quangna. She has already been beaten up by Lord Luo Hao. And the sister-in-law who saw her home was oppressed by Lord Luo Hao's coercion became like this. At this time, Riaz was also very fast and also knelt down in front of Luo Hao on one knee. She said with a slightly flustered expression, Lord Luo Hao, elder sister Gyule Feya, in fact, she did not deliberately provoke your majesty and strength. Please take back your pressure and aura, Lord Luo Hao. Ria's tone was very sincere. After all, this time it was Greffia's fault. And after hearing Ria's words, she glanced at that Greffia again. Later, Luo Hao slowly took back his coercion, accompanied by the recovery of Luo Hao's aura. Suddenly, at this time, Greffia was also breathing the fresh air with great relief. She didn't expect this ordinary man in front of her at all, although he has yet to directly reveal the power he possesses. But just Yu Wei is already a powerful aura that can make him almost feel that he is about to be completely defeated. This man is very scary, even no less than Lord Sazek's Gremory. At this time of Greffia, she thought in her heart. Slightly readjusted, this silver-haired woman with a vulgar appearance, she was very respectful and said to Luo Hao in front of her, Sorry, Lord Luo Hao, I apologize for my behavior and tone just now. I'm really sorry for judging your strength just now from a human point of view. The challenge request I have already given up, but please let me follow you for a while, since there is no way to personally test the strength of this king. At this time, Greffia, she could only be the next best thing. And listen to the words of Greffia. Luo Hao, he just picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. He said casually, Up to you. And with Luo Hao's voice just fell, Riaz, she was finally relieved at this time. Otherwise, he was really afraid that the powerful force of Lord Luo Hao would hurt his sister-in-law. Only, at this time, Riaz, she also glanced at the sister-in-law beside her. For some reason, she sighed slightly. Because what Sister Greffia said just now was to follow Lord Luo Hao for a while and observe his power. As for Lord Luo Hao, he didn't seem to directly reject Sister Gyule Fei's request. This made Riaz feel a little unhappy and a little jealous. Although she herself is very clear Sister Greffia is her sister-in-law. And after this farce ended, Luo Hao, he also stood up directly from the sofa, after glancing at that Greffia for a while. He also said to the silver-haired woman in front of him, That's Phoenix, you go tell him. Garbage is not worthy of coveting the king's things, by the way. I also want to play a more interesting ranking game. After all, the superior demon from last time was really too weak. As soon as Luo Hao's voice fell, he was already walking straight towards the outside of the door, and looked at the back of Luo Hao who was leaving. At this time, Greffia also showed a slightly complicated expression. In the original version, she thought she was in the Underworld, although she was not as powerful as those transcendents who exceeded the specifications. But, even so. Greffia, she doesn't consider herself a weak demon either. After all, his title of Silver-Haired Queen of Annihilation is not for nothing. However, even if it is like this, in the face of the powerful coercion of the man just now, she was still completely incapable of resisting. Such power can be described as incomprehensible. On the other side, Greffia, she also turned around a little and looked at Riaz behind her. She sighed again. Miss Riaz, are you sure you really want to reject the Phoenix family's engagement? Hearing the words of Sister Greffia, Riaz at this time also nodded fiercely and said, Well, I'm definitely not going to marry that guy from the Phoenix family. Riaz's eyes and tone revealed a very firm attitude. And listening to Riaz's answer, Greffia, she also closed her eyes and nodded. Then she responded to Riaz. Since that's the case, Miss Ria's also asked you to act quickly. After all, a man with terrifying power like Lord Luo Hao is very popular. You should be the devil family earlier and give birth to better offspring. Obviously, at this time Grefia, after what she experienced just now. It was also early that Luo Hao was included in one of Ria's goals, and it was one of the goals that had to be won. And listening to Grefia's words, Ria's at this time, she immediately blushed slightly. Sister Grefia. What the hell are you talking about? Hearing Ria's words, Grefia didn't seem to care at all. Even she added, by the way, if you have time, today I will teach you a little more about how to pursue boys. Miss Ria's a man like Lord Luo Hao. If you miss it, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Grefia, she said all these words with a serious face. On the other side, the Phoenix family in the Underworld. At this time, Leza Phoenix, he also finally learned about the news about his fiancée. Damn it, that human, how dare he be so arrogant? He even dared to take the initiative to provoke the pride of my Phoenix family. Do you really think that after defeating a superior demon, you are already invincible? At this moment, Leza Phoenix, his whole body immediately burned with the flames of incomparably vigorous demons. A powerful magic force burst out immediately. It's not worthy of coveting the king's thing. Interesting, although he was already ready to teach that human guy a good lesson. From what it looks like now, this thing, it can't be delayed any longer. Inside a special space in Kuoh Academy. Bang ding, bang ding, the crisp collision sound between the metals was constantly heard at this time. I saw Saber at this time, Kiba Yudo, Haimjima Aquino, and Taho Kitten. The four of them are training intensely, and Luo Hao's words. Naturally, he also stood in the distance, with his arms folded in front of his chest. He's watching this fight, this training. After all, the current Luo Hao, he is also about to start a ranking game with that guy named Leza Phoenix. Although that guy's power is still nothing in Luo Hao's eyes, even if you don't use the power of the evil demon drive and flowing blades of fire. Luo Hao felt that he could crush him directly with one hand, but if it is only from the perspective of ranking game, it should be able to bring a little fun to Luo Hao. After all, the ranking game won't give Luo Hao the king so many chances. Moreover, the opponent's Tears of Phoenix is basically equivalent to the existence of resurrection medicine. For a little entertainment, it's enough. And Luo Hao at this time, he wasn't just looking forward to a more interesting ranking game. At this time, he was looking forward to it even more. It was the check-in for that famous scene against that Leza Phoenix guy, for that sign-in bonus. This is what Luo Hao really cares about the most. I don't know when it was against the little roast chicken of the Phoenix family. Check-in rewards. What the hell? The first turning point in the original plot, the ending of the first season of the animation. The reward shouldn't be too bad. Luo Hao, he thought so in his heart. However, even he himself had some doubts. Now that you have the evil demon drive and flowering blades, what other sign-in rewards can make you happy? On the other side, Gurifia was standing behind Luo Hao. When she saw the blonde little girl named Saber, it turned out to be an easy 1 against 3. Even she, who has always been extremely indifferent, showed a slightly surprised expression. That girl obviously looks so ordinary, and the magic power in her body is not huge. However, it is really surprising that such a powerful force can burst out. What's more, the holy sword in her hand that exudes great power and divine aura all the time, she has never seen it before. And looking at the shocked elder sister Gurifia at this time Ria's, she also slightly pursed her lips and smiled. Then she was talking to the elder sister of Grefia beside her. I can't feel so surprised now, but there is something even more shocking about Lord Luo Hao tilde. Hearing Miss Ria's words, Grefia also nodded. Regarding this matter, I am afraid that Ria's does not need to say it, and Grefia herself is very clear. After all, yesterday she had personally experienced Luo Hao, that unreasonable, absolutely powerful force. However, at this time, Grefia continued to ask Ria's beside her. By the way, what did you think about the ranking game with the Phoenix family? If you fail, you will be forcibly sent back to fulfill the engagement contract with Master Leza of the Phoenix family. Hearing the question from Sister Grefia, Ria's also showed a slightly puzzled expression. Then she spoke in response to Grefia's question. I feel like it's almost impossible to lose the fight. No, it should be said that it is absolutely impossible to lose back. Even if he has such an unreasonably powerful item as Phoenix Tears, this is still the case. Obviously, at this time she absolutely believed in the power of Lord Luo Hao and other dependents. It's just that while Grefia and Ria's were discussing this issue, Luo Hao standing in front of the two of them, he also said very calmly, "Humph, if an opponent of that level can bring me a little fun, it's already very good." Obviously. It can be easily heard from Luo Hao's words that he never put the guy from the Phoenix family in his eyes from the beginning. For him, the guy from Phoenix was just a tool to have fun with himself. By the way, used to complete a check-in, get a reward, that's all. Luo Hao, he is looking forward more and more to what the next reward will be.
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500-plus novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.